You get shamed that it's it.
Is the mic on? Oh, there we go. Calling our meeting to order this evening, 2023-0914R. Mr. Kavanaugh, are we streaming?
Yes, we are, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Wasserman. We didn't start the fire. A good ballad. Our next musical selection will be City Clerk Kavanaugh. Looking forward to what that could and should be. Announcement prior to the roll call. Item number 6, ordinance 2023-12, number 7, ordinance 2023-013, and resolution 2023-097 regarding the rezoning master business list and site plan is what is known in the community and by us as the Greystar Kokomar Development Project has been postponed to the October 26th meeting at the request of the applicant, who will not be heard on tonight's agenda item. Also, agenda item 14, ordinance 2023-026 regarding an amendment to chapter 5 of the city's code of ordinances relating to animals has been postponed to the October 12th commission meeting at the request of staff, will not be heard tonight. And regarding the previous delay, everyone had been notified that had planned to be here because we did do it as time certain. So we made sure that happened. Please speak into the microphone and mute if you're speaking, or mute if you're not speaking, and unmute if you are. Mr. Kavanaugh, call the roll, and then we'll do the pledge.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Here.
Commissioner Brody.
Here.
Commissioner Raley,
Good evening.
Vice Mayor Welch,
Here.
Mayor Rydell.
Is Jackie here?
Of course she is.
it's going to be that kind of meeting tonight. I'm here, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you. City Manager Brooks,
Here.
City Attorney Piper.
Here.
This meeting is being conducted live with a physical quorum present. Our procedures of public comment shall be explained by the city attorney.
Would you like to do the pledge first?
You know, Jackie threw me off a little bit tonight. So there's certain meetings that start with giggles. So I'm going to ask everyone to please stand, and our deputy city manager shall lead us in the pledge due to the pizza incident that predated this meeting. One under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now back on track. Madam City Attorney, could you please explain the city's public comment procedure?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The material for today's meeting is available online at www.coconutcreek.net. Members of the public were advised in the notice for this meeting that they could address the City Commission by emailing comments not exceeding 400 words to commissioncomments@coconutcreek.net or by calling 954-973-6772 to leave up to a 3-minute comment on the city's dedicated public comment voicemail. The city provided a simple set of instructions explaining how the public may submit their comments, which were published in the notice and on the city's website. In addition to all live public comment presented at today's meeting, all public comments that were received by email or phone message prior to noon today will be included as part of the record for this meeting and will be considered by the City Commission before any action is taken.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. We have our input from the public section to start the meeting. I see one person. I see George signed in for you. You have an item, right, George? Okay. A little, yeah. I don't know if you filled that portion in, but it's okay. Non-agenda. George, come on up. I know you signed in. Is there a PowerPoint?
No.
Okay.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Madam City Manager, Madam City Attorney, and the gentleman City Clerk. I am asking today and respectfully requesting that we, as a city, take a hard stand against SB 102, the Live Local Act. And why do I do such a thing? First of all, I took a really deep dive into SB 102 and found it to be a violation of our rights as residents and of your ability to be city commissioners or elected officials. As you know, Mayor Rydell is an attorney protecting the rights of those on a daily basis. Vice Mayor Welsh, you've been on the dais the longest, setting policy. Commissioner Raley, you, like myself, you come from families that immigrated into this country, from places where people lost their rights. Commissioner Brody, you served your country. And Commissioner Wasserman, you're a teacher of history and know what happens when rights are taken away from people through history. I'm very alarmed that our officials at the state level, including our own local elected officials at the state level, voted yes on this. And I pretty much pose you the question, how do we fight back on this clear infringement of all our rights by the state of Florida? And that I don't know which point cities and counties are going to draw a line in the sand as home rule has been slowly eroded from the ability for residents and their elected officials to set policy. And it's being funneled from the top down. And funneled is probably the incorrect word. It's being forced. And I thank you for your time.
Thanks, George, as always. Mr. Kavanaugh, anyone else sign in? Anyone else here wish to speak publicly about a non-agenda item? Nobody? Okay, Mr. Kavanaugh, did anyone put in any written or telephonic comments for this evening's meeting?
No, they have not, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. This time we'll conclude our public input. Yeah, Jackie,
Thank you.
for the comment.
Thank you, George. I do want to comment on your presentation. It's encouraging. It's very proud that a resident would stand up for such it is a blatant act of taking away municipalities' authority over its own city. And I want to thank you for speaking up and encouraging us to take action. I applaud you.
Okay, we do have a presentation this evening prior to getting to the consent agenda of our poet laureate, Laura McDermott Mathrick, or Mathrick McDermott. McDermott Mathrick.
Yeah.
I do see your mom here.
Yes.
I hope you're feeling better. So for the members of the public that are not here, this is going to be the year in review of the poet laureate. She has concluded her first year as the poet laureate of the city of Coconut Creek. I believe a robust year. And I do recall the first poem you did. I believe was it Veterans Day?
Yes, Memorial Day.
Memorial Day. I apologize. And I just remember.
And that was before I was appointed, sir.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
It was a good one. So thank you for
Thank
that.
And
So
now
Laura, I will turn the floor over to you
Okay.
for your year in review and anything else you'd like to share with the city commission. And I think I speak on behalf of all of us. We thank you for everything you've done because I think this has been a unique thing. And I'll allow my colleagues, obviously, a moment to address that as well. So I turn to you, Laura.
Well, good evening. As Poet Laureate of Coconut Creek, I think of myself as someone who has my finger on the pulse of the culture of this city. I'm a professional teaching artist, having also worked in various roles in public sector since 2002. I hope the level of professionalism and content knowledge I bring to my role in the city not just meets, but exceeds your expectations. I have gone over and beyond what has been asked of me as city poet and to prove wrong anyone who doubted the need for an appointed poet laureate in this city, and to dispel any questions on whether or not I carried the right resume, possessed the content knowledge, or presented the appropriate professionalism to fill this role. Mayor Josh, Vice Mayor Sandy, Commissioner Jackie, John, and Jeff, City Manager Brooks, and I must also mention former Commissioner Becky Tooley. You took a chance on poetry and made the case that poetry is a necessity in public proceedings. Serving my community as Poet Laureate has afforded me the opportunity to work with my neighbors, getting to know them on a very different level than a regular resident. For I'm probably now a lower level, maybe that of a very unqualified therapist, like a hairdresser or a bartender. I am interacting with various folks daily throughout our 12.2 square mile radius than I or probably you have ever imagined. I regularly engage with Creekers who desire more avenues for art and particularly poetry. I'm often contacted by residents for writing help and reading suggestions. I've reviewed literary artifacts. I've critiqued holiday and birthday poems for residents before they sent them to loved ones. I've forged relationships with Creek businesses as well as various community leaders. For instance, because of my position, I'm currently helping arrange connections for an upcoming reading for Mr. Chasten Buttigieg. I'm collaborating with the Poet Laureate of Miami-Dade County on a cross-county favorite poems poetry project featuring elected officials, public servants, and poets from both counties in October. And I will be a featured poet for the Florida State Department of Management Services and Office of Supplier Diversity Conference later this month. Tonight, I will summarize for you the work I've completed that promotes poetry and literacy, and then tell you of the projects I'm promising in my second year. I've handed out an outline with the specific activities I have successfully completed to date since my appointment on August 25th of 2022, which is exactly 386 days ago, and the projects I'm proposing for this year as Poet Laureate of the city. Since becoming for the first Poet Laureate, I was named the 2022 Distinguished Professor by the Association of Florida Colleges. So that's the #1 professor out of all 28 state and community college institutions in Florida. This summer, I was admitted into the PhD program of Higher Educational Leadership and Research Methodologies at Florida Atlantic University, and I'm tracked to have my Master's of Education in summer of 2022 with my PhD coursework at the end of 2025. As laureate, I've delivered 3 public speaking engagements. I've offered a meet and greet public reading. I taught one-day workshop at the community center, 1 2-day workshop at Lions Creek Middle School, and 1 4-week writing workshop in collaboration with the Broward County North Regional Library. I've written 4 quarterly poems, 5 poems on thematic occasion for city-sponsored events, and I have also written 153 haikus for my Creek series featured on social media. In addition to 23 other poems, I've been directly inspired by conversations with community members. That's a total of 185 poems I've written. I've organized 14 events and 5 publications outside of the self-published haiku series, all within the 386 days I've been serving as laureate of this city. A special project I completed this year, in addition to all that I've listed, was the construction and the installation of a little free library near the walking trail at the Winston Park Nature Center, paid for by a private endowment presented to me for personal use. But instead, I elected to then match that out of my own pocket to build this library for the city. My goals for this year as Poet Laureate are to continue delivering my poetic work by establishing even closer ties with the Commission and now Parks and Rec to find more feasible ways to provide sound programming that the residents of Coconut Creek desire. As a poet, I've been asked to offer a number of poetry talks and workshops. I have been asked by teachers in town to arrange spoken word programming. Just last month, I had a lengthy discussion with Wayne Toby about establishing a Poetry in the Park reading series in the winter months, where we'd feature different city parks at each event, highlighting the native foliage and animals as citizens write their own nature poems through the workshop I lead. I have spoken with the regional director of the North Regional Broward County Library about offering another 4-part writing workshop series throughout the month of April, which is National Poetry Month, in collaboration with the city again. I've reached out to Commissioner Wasserman about the possibility of hosting a public reading at a new coffee shop opening in the South. I previously had conversations with Commissioner Raley about hosting a poetry lecture for Winmore residents. I plan to continue working with Vice Mayor Sandy Welch on visiting our schools to bring poetry into the classrooms. Additionally, I've committed myself under Commissioner Brody to managing the free library I had constructed and installed at the Winston Park Nature Center. And to Mayor Rydell, I made the commitment to establish better transparency between this position of Poet Laureate and the Commission by empowering Creek poets and artists through educational programming and organizing more opportunities for them to share. In regards to my poems that I will write, I will stay true to who I am as an artist by continuing in the vein the residents and the city officials appreciate. Every single one of my writings has been inspired by conversations with residents, events around town, and the flora and fauna found in the city that they will continue to be. If a poem calls for hopefulness and to be uplifting, it will be. However, if the occasion calls for a somber tone within a poem, then as a professional artist, I will write to that occasion. If I can throw in a reference to nature, then I will. Let's be honest. Writing poetry comes easier to me than most. However, I hope you understand that the act of expressing myself creatively is not an easy task. It's painstaking. It takes more energy to write on a prescribed theme, as the muse sometimes has its own intention. But as a professional writer, the one you have entrusted to properly represent this city through the written and spoken word, I assure you that I will continue to write just as I have, no deviation, because I have received your feedback and the feedback of the residents that what I'm doing is on point and is highly desired. Finally, since there wasn't a reimbursement plan in place for my work in this first year as Poet Laureate, I'm currently in the process of applying for a Broward Cultural Arts Division Artist Grant that provides direct funds to individual artists for all disciplines for projects that includes a public event. The Artist Support Grant is designed to give poets like me the ability and flexibility for artistic advancement through creativity, innovation, and sustained commitment to artistic work in the county, which is precisely what my work is here in the city. I'm applying for a grant to fund me in the continuation of the work I plan to offer the city. I'm more than a volunteer. I'm a donor investing my time, talent, and my own money into the projects that I've been offering in this city. I've been appointed by the mayor and the commission to serve, and I'm doing just that. The special project that I'm committing myself to this year, in addition to the list, is finding a means for sustainable funding that will move the commissioner's vision of this Poet Laureate position in programming. As this specific Poet Laureate position I've been appointed to is a worthwhile initiative praised highly by the national poetry community and many political figures I've spoken with. Most of all, I'm excited to promote Coconut Creek as a culturally alive city, not just for my art, poetry, but in all the ways that we can show South Florida how the arts can thrive like native flora and fauna. I look forward to finishing out this year and also applying for a second year appointment next year. I'm committed to the service through poetry. I thank you for the opportunity you've given me to give back to the community where my family and I have found roots and much to root for. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm getting the nod. Laura, I think you got to maybe stay there. Some of my colleagues are looking like they want to talk, but I will tell you this. I stopped paying attention for like a minute. I shouldn't say that, should I? Okay. But you ready? I think
I can send you a copy.
I apologize. I think you'll like what you ready? You ready? I just did this. Poetry and Creek. Community comes as one. To the future we go. Good?
There you go.
I wrote a poem.
There you go. You're inspired.
Okay.
I like it.
That wasn't Chat GPT. I'm
was
just
what?
kidding. Never mind.
I don't even know what that is, Jeff. No, that wasn't AI. Karen could see the notes that I was scribbling. I was wrong with some syllables. I had to like count my thing. So I apologize. I did, but right. Poem.
We'll get the iambic pentameter next.
Commissioner Brody.
So when you got appointed, I kind of laughed. I said, wow, it's going to be kind of exciting. You know, you add culture to the city. And, but you know, there's always trepidation when you get something new, you just don't know which direction it's going to go in. And you don't know, you know, is this going to be a successful thing? Is this going to be a thing that, you know, people really, you know, grab onto? And you have not let me down. I have attended some of these lectures and some of the classes you have given. They're phenomenal. It was great seeing everybody in there kind of interpreting the poems differently, and which is what poetry is really about, is your interpretation and how you feel within the heart of the poem. So I was really excited. You've really done a lot of really great things. I'm tell you, I'm kind of honored to have that library in the park next to my house. I will be keeping an eye on it. But it's exciting to see that this is just, instead of it just becoming a reading, it's become a thing. And I think I've certainly embraced this thing that you have done. It was more than an expectation that I thought this role was going to have. So I really appreciate everything you've done up here. I make sure I'm early to the reading so I can hear you do your poems. So I really appreciate where you're coming from in this, and I think you've done a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Welch, then Commissioner Riley.
Okay, so Laura, when you first came to me about this idea, I said, no, I don't want to pitch it for you. You should pitch it for yourself. And I invited you to come to a budget meeting, and you did, and you really knocked it out of the ballpark. So everyone heard what I had heard and I knew would be possible, but you've far exceeded what you originally told us that you might present to us and our city on behalf of the commission as a poet laureate. I saw you in action numerous times at these activities, but I think the one that stands out the most to me is in the classroom, because in middle school, as we all know, getting their attention for something like an exercise like this was a history class, right?
It was, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So you
Mr.
can-
Gutierrez.
Yeah, you can appreciate this, Jeff, that she would come in here and that she garnered not only their attention, but they acted on what challenge she gave them, and the results were stellar. I mean, you highlighted some of them here at one of our events. So I admire your professionalism and your talent, and thank you for sharing it with us. The only thing I have to ask, you mentioned out of pocket. So the stipend that went along with this unpaid position was usurped with the little library. And how much have you given out of pocket?
I haven't kept track.
Okay. Well, I hope that we can think about a way to help with that, because it wasn't the intent that you should be going out and spending your own money to do something that we ask you to do on a volunteer basis. So anyway, I'm hoping but I'm very proud of you and proud of what you've done and how you've represented us. And thank you.
Really? I had you in queue. I looked for the signal. I missed something.
Okay, just waiting to be recognized.
That's
All right.
that's a first.
Laura. Ooh, Laura, you are an asset to the city of Coconut Creek. We cannot have too much culture in any capacity. And you have hit it out of the ballpark. Every time you are at an event, you make it special. Can't wait to see what you have in store for us in the future. And you do add class to every event you attend. And I want to thank you for just making Coconut Creek special, even more special. Thank you.
And I'm not big of a poetry guy, but the humor you bring, I think you have a great sense of humor, and it shows. And I appreciate what you do. And it's, I think the word culture was used a lot, and I think it's important to have. So thanks for all you're doing.
So aside from my poem, I'll say this. I read like your activities and stuff like that. I think you've been really impactful to the city. I will say this is just something I thought when I'm sitting here that I think could be something cool. You do with it what you may. I think that like the police department, the fire department, you have these appreciation days, veterans, you do some of that. I think I'd love to maybe see something like that. So I look at it maybe like a programming thing. Maybe we can increase programming for awareness. And that's Wayne's here. I don't know how that looks, but that's how I kind of see it as, increased programming for the arts and things of that nature, because I think that's what broadens the scope. Really takes the out-of-pocket thing out of it a little bit, right? If we're able to do it under the guise of like under Parks and Rec programming, things like that, just my food for like,
In kind.
yeah, I mean, but something you had mentioned to me a while ago, right when we appointed you, was like, you'd love to have kids like pens and pencils. I just remember you from that first conversation I had with you a while ago. And that's something that, Parks and Rec, I know we do great art programs. Miss Imana runs like a sick art program. And I know the kids, just because my kids do it, get like the art set and stuff like that. I'm just thinking out loud. I'd love to see something with whatever we're celebrating. We do a lot of celebrations, you know. It's breast cancer month in October. Obviously, that's something really significant to me. Things like that. I think that's just great for programming, but I leave you for the wherever you want. I just love the concept of that because I think it brings a different dynamic to whatever you're doing. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Laura, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, Laura, just a quick question. Procedurally, what you handed us was a resume. Did you previously give that to anybody?
So I do not have a resume. I have a curriculum vitae. It's about 15 pages long. So as I do,
That's the total wrong question.
you did, and
I'm
you're
a
gonna
lawyer.
get the full answer. You're gonna get the answer.
You handed us a document. Had you given this to anyone yet?
No,
Okay, so just for the purpose of the record, I want to be clear because this is your year in review. Our poet laureate has provided a 3-page document with not only her acknowledgements and all the things she did, but a proposal as well. So what you passed up here, Mr. Kavanaugh, make that as part of the record. And I apologize by calling it a resume.
Yeah.
What was the
I'll
word?
send you the full one if you want it. It's a long read.
Don't write a poem about it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura, for what you do. Consent agenda items before I call 1 through 3. Does anyone want to pull anything? Seeing none, I'm going to read consent agenda items 1 through 3. Item number 1, a motion to approve the minutes from previous city commission meeting 2023-0807 WS. Item number 2, resolution 2023-149, a resolution authorizing the city manager designee to execute consulting services work authorization. Ooh, you get me sometimes. With Bermello, Agimil and Partners, Inc. to provide design services for the renovation and rehabilitation of the rec complex building in accordance with RFQ number 10-6-2111. Resolution number 3, 2023-153, a resolution authorizing the city manager designee to execute an interagency agreement with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department to provide for the sharing of license plate recognition extract files between parties. No one said they wanted to pull, correct? Mr. Kavanaugh, call the consent agenda 1, 2, 3. Oh. I need a motion and a
Motion.
second for the
Second.
consent agenda 1, 2, 3.
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Wasserman,
Second.
second by Commissioner Brody. Mr. Kavanaugh, call the consent agenda on 1, 2, and 3.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Commissioner Raley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Welch,
Yes.
Mayor Rydell.
Yes, we're going to move to the regular agenda. Item number 4, resolution 2023-159, a resolution approving the Coranda Village 7 Condominium Associate Inc. application for matching grant funds from the Neighborhood Enhancement Grant and Program for entrance sign enhancement. I see our Director of Sustainable Development slowly putting on his glasses, and if he wishes to present on the item. I need a motion and second for discussion.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Brody, seconded by Commissioner Raley. Mr. Stoudemire.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. This is a neighborhood enhancement grant for Coranda 7, and it is a sign enhancement, which is consistent with the program guidelines. They are seeking matching funds in the amount of $1,414.60. This is for 2 new entrance signs at the Coranda 7 Village entrance. This is the 7th neighborhood enhancement grant of the fiscal year. And of course, we are supporting the application. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone have anything? Seeing none. Thank you, Scott. Mr. Kavanaugh? Oh, I apologize, Mr. Kavanaugh. Anyone submit anything about this?
No, they have not, Mayor.
No one signed in to speak?
No, they have not, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. Call the roll. Item number 5.
Item number 4, I believe, Mayor.
Wow. Got to tell you, I'm really getting ahead of myself tonight. It's that Thursday night football kickoff that really does it for you, right? Item number 4, call the agenda.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Commissioner Raley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Welch,
Yes.
Mayor Rydell.
Yes. Now we are on item number 5. It's a resolution 2023-160, resolution approving the Cayman Village Neighborhood Association application for matching grant funds from the Neighborhood Enhancement Grant Program for Security Enhancements. Our Director of Sustainable Development, Mr. Stoudemire, will present on the item. I need a motion in a second.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wasserman, seconded by Commissioner Brody. Scott,
Mr. Mayor, may I?
what did I do?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to recuse myself.
Are you leaving?
No, I'll just sit here and
All
turn
right.
it out.
All right. Let the record reflect Commissioner Raley is not voting on the item based on her previous disclosure as being the president of the Winmore Community Association. Now that Commissioner Rayleigh is not included in the vote, Scott, I turn to you for presentation on the item.
Yes, just very briefly, again, Cayman Village Neighborhood Association seeking matching funds in the amount of $4,378.55 for a security enhancement project. The security enhancement projects are, of course, consistent with the program guidelines that we're recommending approval. This would be the 8th neighborhood enhancement grant of the fiscal year.
Thank you so much, Scott. Does anyone have any questions or comments for staff? Mr. Kavanaugh, has anyone submitted public comment or written comment regarding this item?
No, they have not, Mayor.
Has anyone signed in to speak on the item?
No, they have not, Mayor.
Anybody here wish to speak? Seeing none, members of the commission, anything else? Seeing none, Mr. Kavanaugh, call the roll on item number 5.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Welch,
Yes.
Mayor Rydell.
Yes, as I previously noted, items 6, 7, and 8 are postponed as duly noticed and duly mentioned at the start of the meeting. Agenda items 9 and 11 are quasi judicial. We're going to consider 7 quasi judicial items. Will the city attorney please explain the quasi judicial procedures?
Florida courts have determined that there are certain types of matters, including items 9, 10, and 11 on tonight's agenda that are to be treated differently than the other items considered by the commission. Most decisions of the commission are legislative in nature, which means that the commission is acting as a policy-making body. In contrast, when a matter is quasi-judicial, the commission is applying existing rules and policies to a factual situation and is therefore acting like a judge and jury in a courtroom. In such cases, the courts have decided that due process and fundamental fairness require that more formal procedures be followed. Will the clerk please confirm compliance with the notice requirements?
Public meeting notice requirements have been met for items 9, 10, and 11.
And will you please swear in the witnesses?
Will anyone wishing to speak on any of the quasi judicial items, please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? When you come forward to speak, please state your name and address clearly for the record. State whether or not you have been sworn in, and whether or not you understand the rules of the proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. We're going to now hear item 9. I'm going to turn to the applicant, and I see you guys in the back over there, so just you can affirmatively give me a head nod. We're going to hear item 9. We're also going to hear items 10 and 11. I'm going to ask very quickly, Mr. Stoudemire, on behalf of staff, do you have any objections to handling 9, 10, and 11 together?
None.
May I ask the applicant in the back, just affirmatively just shout to me? Do you have any objection to handling 9, 10, and 11 together? Okay. Since there's no objections, I'm going to have the city attorney read the ordinance titles. I will then ask for a motion and second to move the items respectfully. I turn to Madam City Attorney to read three ordinances.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2023-16, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Coconut Creek, Florida, approving the rezoning request made by TT of Sample Inc. to amend the existing Infinity Planned Main Street Development District to change the name to the Infinity Lincoln of Coconut Creek PMDD and revise the development standards to include a new Lincoln automobile dealership for the property generally located on the north side of Sample Road between State Road 7, US 441 and Northwest 54th Avenue, Wakna Boulevard. Legally described in Exhibit A attached here to and made a part hereof, providing for findings, providing for conditions of approval, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date. The next ordinance is ordinance number 2023-17, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Coconut Creek, Florida, amending the city's code of ordinances by amending Chapter 13 Land Development Code, Article 3 Zoning Regulations, Division 8 Master Business List to create Section 13-626 Master Business List Planned Main Street Development District and adopt the permitted and special land uses for the Infinity Lincoln of Coconut Creek Planned Main Street Development District generally located on the north side of Sample Road between North State Road 7, US 441 and Northwest 54th Avenue in the Main Street project area, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. And the third ordinance is number 2023-18, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Coconut Creek, Florida, approving the site plan request of TT of Sample Inc. for the property generally located on the north side of Sample Road between State Road 7, US 441 and Northwest 54th Avenue, Wakna Boulevard, legally described in Exhibit A attached here to and made a part hereof, providing for findings, providing for conditions of approval, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date. These are all before you as second public hearing and quasi judicial items.
Thank you very much. I need a motion and second on 9.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Brody, seconded by Commissioner Wasserman. I need a motion and second on 10 for discussion. What? What'd I say? I said Wasserman and then Brody. Did I not? I'm sorry, Jeff. Let's do that again. I need a motion and a second on 9 for discussion.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wasserman, seconded by Commissioner Brody. I need a motion and a second for 10 for discussion. Maybe one of the ladies instead of what's going on down there. It's like a bromance over there. I need a motion and a second on 10.
Motion made.
Second.
By Commissioner Raley and seconded by Commissioner Brody. I need a motion and a second on 11.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Brody, seconded by Commissioner Raley. Are there any disclosures on 9, 10, and 11? I go down the line. Commissioner Wasserman.
No.
Is there any disclosures, Commissioner Brody?
Nope.
Commissioner
No.
Raley, Vice Mayor, none by the mayor, none by myself. I'm going to ask staff to make any presentation if there's anything different from your first presentation on 9, 10, and 11.
There is nothing different. Of course, this all relates to the new Lincoln dealership. Staff made a thorough, or the applicant made a thorough presentation. There was good discussion. It was not controversial. So at this point, staff and the applicant are here to answer any questions.
I'm going to turn to the applicant. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation or add anything different from round 1? The applicant said, Mr. Scott, do you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to talk about the applicant?
None.
Applicant, do you have anything that you'd like to talk to staff about or question them on? Okay, now I'm going to open the public hearing regarding 9, 10, 11. The public hearing is now open. Any members of the public can wish to speak. I'm going to turn first to Mr. Kavanaugh. Mr. Kavanaugh, has anyone submitted comment on 9, 10, or 11?
No, they have not, Mayor.
Mr. Kavanaugh, has anyone signed in to talk about 9, 10, or 11?
No, they have not, Mayor.
Anyone here wish to speak on items 9, 10, or 11 as part of the public? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. The public hearing is now closed. I'm going to, at this point, is there any closing remarks from staff?
No closing remarks.
Any closing remarks from the applicant? Seeing none, I turn to the city commission for any questions or comments on for anybody. Anybody have any? Vice Mayor, on either 9, 10, or 11?
Actually, it's in total. I just want to thank them, not only for staying in the community and being such a contributing business partner, but expanding and helping make Sample Road look really good. Thank you.
And I'll just throw the reminder out there that if there's any issue in development with parking cars, feel free to reach out to the city. We do have some lots and we have accommodated other car dealerships. So that's up to Madam Brooks. So anything else by the commission? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve and a motion to second 9. And so let me read the title. I apologize. I need a motion a motion and a second on to approve the Infinity Lincoln rezoning application.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Raley, seconded by Commissioner Brody. Mr. Kavanaugh, call the roll on 9.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody.
Yes.
Commissioner Raley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Welch,
Yes.
Mayor Rydell.
Yes. Item number 10, Chapter 13 Code Amendment to include the Infinity Lincoln PMDD permitted the special land use PMDD master business list. I need a motion in a second.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wasserman, second by Commissioner Brody. Mr. Kavanaugh, call the roll.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody.
Yes.
Commissioner Raley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Yes.
Mayor Rydell.
Yes. Item number 11, the Infinity Lincoln site plan application. I need a motion and a second on to approve the site plan.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Brody, seconded by Commissioner Raley. Mr. Kavanaugh, call the roll on item number 11.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody.
Yes.
Commissioner Raley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Yes.
Mayor Rydell.
Yes, we're moving on to item number 12, ordinance 2023-002. It is a second reading. It is a public hearing, Madam City Attorney.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Coconut Creek, Florida, amending the city's code of ordinances by amending Chapter 13 Land Development Code, Article 1, Administration, Regulations, and Procedures, Division 4, Fee Schedules, Section 13-84, Non-refundable Building Permit Fees, to update landscaping fees, and amending Chapter 13 Land Development Code, Article 3, Zoning Regulations, Division 4, Accessory Uses and Structures, Subdivision 4, Landscape Standards and Requirements in its entirety to update definitions, implement state law requirements for tree removal, and update requirements, procedures, and language to eliminate conflict and duplication and improve user friendliness and implementation, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
I need a motion in a second.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Brody, second by Commissioner Wasserman. Is it Justin? You doing it? Our deputy, oh, I apologize. Scott?
No need.
So
to
I turn to our Director of Sustainable Development to make the report on the ordinance item number 11, a second reading and a public hearing.
Yes, just very briefly, of course, there was a very healthy discussion at first reading regarding the ordinance. At the end of the meeting, there was consensus to have staff revisit the fee structure for the waiver process. Staff has done that. We have reduced the application fee for the waiver to $50 and then put a heavier dollar amount on the inspection process if the waiver is approved. So we believe we've complied with the commission's wishes on that note. There is a second change that was not even discussed at first reading, and that has to do with some state legislation regarding areas impacted by last year's hurricanes. There's areas within 100 miles of where the hurricanes made landfall. There is some now state language that says that local governments cannot impose new regulations that may be stringent or harmful. So in an abundance of caution, we did have some language with regards to our RS1 zoning district where we were increasing the amount of lot trees that would be required. However, in an abundance of caution with this legislation, we've removed that change. It really is fine. We have very limited lots anyway that are RS1 in the city. So it's fine. It's okay. And again, I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Scott. My only quick question on this was, I thought a lot about our last discussion, and I thank you for making the change that I think the commission directed on that item. My only thing was, and this is what I don't, personally don't like doing, I don't like creating additional processes. Right? So do you believe that the process of separating out the waiver application fee and then finally the permit fee, that creates an additional, I'll call it an additional process, but maybe an additional obstacle or additional unnecessary staff time to do that?
No, in fact, I think it will simplify things for staff.
That was my concern after how the discussion went last time. I wasn't, because it, just in the actual administration of it. So you answered my question. Does anyone else have any questions? Was that yes, Commissioner Wasserman? So you're just, that's like I want to talk, not like I don't want to talk. Okay. It's a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. The public hearing is now open. Does anyone wish to speak on this? Let's hear. Mr. Kavanaugh, did anyone put in any writing about it?
No, they have not, Mayor.
And did anyone sign in on it?
No, they have not, Mayor.
Last chance. Anyone here that wishes to speak in the public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Public hearing is now closed. Anyone else in the commission have anything further? Seeing none, Mr. Kavanaugh, call roll on item number 12.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Commissioner Raley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Welch,
Yes.
Mayor Rydell.
Yes. We're going to move to item number 13. It's an ordinance 2023-025. It is a first reading. Madam City Attorney.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Coconut Creek, Florida, amending the city's code of ordinances by amending Chapter 13 Land Development Code, Article 3 Zoning Regulations, Division 3 Zoning District Regulations and Tables to create Section 13-363 Qualifying Development pursuant to Section 166.04151 subsection 7 Florida statutes under the Live Local Act, and amending Division 5 Site Plan Review Requirements by amending Section 13-546 Approval Required and creating Section 13-551 Site Plan Review Procedures for applications pursuant to Section 166.04151 sub 7 Florida statutes to provide for development regulations and administrative review of certain affordable housing projects pursuant to state law, and by amending Chapter 13 Land Development Code, Article 1, Administration, Regulations, and Procedures, Division 3, Implementation Procedures, Section 13-34, Appeals, to provide for City Commission review of administrative decisions, providing for zoning and progress, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. I need a motion in a second.
Motion.
Second,
Moved by Commissioner Brody, seconded by Commissioner Rayleigh. I turn to, is it Justin now?
Just very briefly, I am going to turn it over to Justin. Of course, this is.
He's here, so I'm like bated anticipation of what Justin's presenting on. So I turn to our Director of Sustainable Development to make the report.
I just
something-
want to, this of course is an ordinance in response to the Live Local legislation that came out this year. And many cities, not all cities, but many cities are moving towards similar type ordinances that are before you tonight. This was put together very quickly, but I think very well done. And I just wanted to thank the collaboration between the city attorney's office, the city manager's office, and sustainable development. And I'm gonna turn it over to Justin because between Kathy Mahaffey and Justin, they did the heavy lifting on this. So Justin is going to run through a quick presentation because I think it's just complicated enough that it warrants a little bit of structure and overview. So thank you, and Justin.
So Justin, just real quick, at the end of your commission, I apologize for interrupting, but I know just because some comments made to me post planning and zoning, post haste, because it was less than 24 hours ago, and I thank you for handling that. I would just like you to address, in case any of my colleagues, some of those concerns at the back end of that meeting. And if you could just add that into your presentation.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a code amendment. We're going to be amending two parts to our land development code. The first part would create a new section to provide all of the land development code regulations, and that new section will be 13-363. And that will be development pursuant to that act under the Live Local Act. Second section we're going to amend will deal with the site plan review requirements, procedures, and appeals. We'll get to why we're amending that in a moment. But there are some major changes to procedure that the act mandates mandates for local governments. So there's going to be amendments to three sections of the land development code there. The main goal of the act, you may be familiar with it enough now, it is to promote the development, availability, and provide opportunities for affordable housing statewide. This may be a little hard to read because there's a lot of things that this act accomplished, but this language is in your staff report, so it might be a little larger font there. But this just provides you a bullet point summary of some of the major points of the act. We're going to focus on two of these things tonight. I'll highlight those in a moment, but I'm just going to tell you some of the other things that the act does. One of the first things that the act does, it prohibits local governments from enacting rent control or the price controls in statewide in Florida. I believe some cities had the ability to have rent control in emergency situations. That is now prohibited statewide. Some of the other things that it does, it establishes regulations for the disposition of municipal property for affordable housing. So it provides standards for local governments to provide city-owned properties on websites. It also calls for new procedures on disposing of that property for affordable housing purposes and development of affordable housing on municipally or county-owned lands, this statewide. It creates new property tax exemptions for affordable housing, including an option for local governments to adopt ordinances providing certain property tax exemptions. Now, we're evaluating some of those portions of the act. It doesn't require an ordinance at this time, but there are varying percentages of property tax exemptions depending on how much and how of housing you provide. And we're looking at that right now. It creates a statewide housing strategy by establishing policies and recommendations for state, local, and private sector partnerships. So there's going to be a lot more new data in affordable housing statewide and partnerships with universities and academic organizations who currently do that, but it's going to strengthen those relationships to provide more information to not only local governments, but to the state and to the developers as well. It also creates what we think is going to be a popular program, and I believe one of our commissioners has mentioned it so far, the Hometown Hero Program. And this will assist residents in home purchases. And we're going to look to that to see how that program could work here in our city at some point and integrate that if we need to into our housing program. But the thing we're going to focus on tonight are the two highlighted sections here. And those mostly deal with land use, zoning, and planning issues that the act preempts, quite frankly, preempts local governments in some significant ways. And we'll go into that. So here's some of the preemptions. They call them the big three preemptions, and they are pretty significant. So let's go through them. The first thing that the act does is it allows a developer to build mixed-use rental housing on lands zoned for commercial, industrial, or mixed use without rezoning a property, without applying for what we call flexibility or reserve units to one of those properties, or requiring any land development code changes or comprehensive plan changes. Typically in our city, residential housing is not permitted outright on a commercially or industrial zone property. There's a process you would need to go through, either one of these processes. Now that is preempted, and these types of developments are permitted on these lands without going through that. Another significant change, and like I said, to procedure, is if one of these projects is qualified, it must be reviewed administratively by the city, and meaning no planning and zoning board and no city commission public hearings. So we have a development review committee that reviews site plans. So the ordinance that we prepared would follow a development review committee process and have a site plan go through that process, which is administrative and meets the requirements in the act. A second provision in the act is, and preemption, is relating to residential density. And what the act says is that the highest density permitted in our city where residential development is permitted will be the maximum density for these projects. So we evaluated all of our districts where all of the residential development is permitted right now. Our maximum residential density in our city is 40 units to dwelling units to the acre. That's in the Main Street area of our city. So that will be the maximum dwelling units per acre under one of these qualifying developments. And the third provision is relating to building height. The act says highest currently allowed building height for a commercial or residential development within 1 mile of the proposed affordable development, or 3 stories, whichever is higher. And so that's going to vary depending on where you're located in our city. If you are closer, if a development is proposed within 1 mile of the city's regional activity center, or what we call Main Street area, there will be permitted higher heights. If it's outside of that 1 mile, most likely it would be under 6 stories or below, but 3 to 6 stories beyond the Main Street area. So, and by the way, a lot of the other factors are going to play into these 3 preemptions, and that are things like landscaping requirements, setbacks, open space, parking, because one of the things that the act says is that after those 3 preemptions, all of the other code requirements will apply. So if there's a design standard, if there's an architectural requirement, if there's a sustainability requirement in our code, it has to comply with that. Like I said, parking setbacks, open space, landscape buffers apply. Also concurrency. We will be looking at the levels of service for traffic. So if a traffic study is needed, they'll have to do a traffic study. Water, sewer, drainage, solid waste, and recreation will all be evaluated just like any other development. Our development aesthetic design criteria will be looked at, and any other applicable city code or comprehensive plan requirement will be applied here. So some people have asked, well, why do we need a city ordinance? Well, there are a lot of significant gaps between, and this applies really to every city in Florida, between what the act says and requires and mandates versus many existing land development codes. And I'll go through a couple of examples here. For example, the act says you have to have, for a qualified development, you have to have at least a minimum of 65% of the floor area of a development residential. Well, it doesn't say how much non-residential you must have, but it requires you to have mixed use development in that development. So how much non-residential floor area should the development have? Well, we established a minimum in our code, and that's 35%. The other issue we had to deal with is, okay, if you're developing a residential development in commercial or industrial zoning, which multifamily zoning regulations will you use to develop that? Right now, we do not have those regulations set up for a development permitted by right. Typically, in that scenario, it would be a planned unit development or PUD or a PCD or planned commerce development type of zoning district we would choose, and it would be dealt with that way. We can't use that here because those require rezonings, public hearings, and et cetera. So we had to come up with some development standards for projects specifically under this act. And so there's a table in the ordinance that provides that. We also, like I said, we had to look at the administrative review process and ensure that that met the standards of the act and what we're looking to do, and that it's consistent with the development review committee process. We looked at the appeals, and we also looked at the procedure of all of that. One of the things we also had to look at was minimum dwelling unit size. Our minimum dwelling unit size for residential, multifamily residential citywide outside of the Main Street area is 1,000 square feet. Now, one of the goals is to provide affordable housing. So to provide affordable housing, typically you would see a lower dwelling unit size. So we looked for a benchmark. Well, the benchmark would be, we felt would be our Main Street area and an existing project. We looked at the Monarch Station apartment complex and the minimum size of the dwelling units there. The smallest one there is in the 700 range. So we used the 700 minimum dwelling unit size as a minimum. Now, if you have a 2-bedroom, it would be 1,000. If you have a 3-bedroom, it would be higher. So it does go up in increments like that. We also are looking at equivalency in design. So if you're doing a mixed use development with a percentage of affordable and a percentage of market rate, we would want to see the affordable units have the same aesthetic design, architectural designs, interior fixtures, exterior features, same accessibility. We don't want separate doors for the affordable units and separate doors for the market rate units. So there's some language in the ordinance that provides equivalency in design. And we also need to make sure that there's an enforcement procedure to maintain affordability through a period of 30 years. So we beefed up that section and put some language in there to address that, and then the appeals section. So I've mentioned a couple of times a qualified development. What we're essentially saying is a qualified development is a development that meets the standards of the act and our city's ordinance. And there's some criteria here in the definition. A qualified development shall mean a multifamily mixed use rental development proposed pursuant to the act. So that is the type of development you would see that would qualify. It's going, like I said before, a minimum of floor area of that type of development would be 65% for residential purposes. A minimum of that would be 40% or must be affordable as defined in the statutes. And I'll show you a little chart of what that means. A minimum of 35% of the total floor area must be dedicated to non-residential uses as provided in the applicable zoning district. So if it's in a B2 zoning district, we want a minimum of 35% of the uses devoted to what's permitted, the commercial uses in the B2 zoning district. And it must be affordable as defined by the law for at least a period of 30 years. So what is affordability? There's varying measures of affordability depending on the incomes. And some of you have seen some of these numbers before, and this is some standard percentages that a lot of the existing housing programs point to when they're defining affordability. These are numbers that are provided for each of Florida's 67 counties. And this is provided by the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. So what I've done is I've gone in and just given you a snapshot of the maximum income here. So an income limit for a single person making 120% of the area median income would be $80,640. And the maximum rent that could be charged under that would be $2,016. And you can, so we provided an example of a single person, we provided an example of a family of four. As you can see, the 120% of area median income is not that much different from a lot of the market rate units that you're seeing out there now. It is below that, but it's not too far off. Now, the next thing we wanted to do is we wanted to find out where all these potential developments could occur. So these are eligible properties citywide. And we can get a bigger map blown up if we need to, but we have a very linear city, so it's hard to put that on the screen. So we highlighted all of these properties you see here could be potential eligible properties under the act that's subject to many other variables of land development code requirements and of course economics of each property. But what you're seeing here is all the properties zoned business, that's the B. B2, B3, B4, all of the industrial zone properties, IO and IM. You're seeing the PCD properties, and PCDs are a lot of our shopping centers. You're also seeing properties that have a designation of PUD. Because some of our PUDs.
So Justin, just to clarify real quick.
Yeah.
These properties could be anything. That could be an active unit, active apartment. You're just delineating that based on the zoning.
Yes.
That's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yes, yes, sir. So, and we also have PUDs and we also have PMDDs. Again, some of these are master plan type of developments, but some of them are mixed use and some of them have commercial and or industrial in them. And by the way, we included the Main Street area in here because it is imminent and it will have a PMDD designation. So we highlighted that in there as well. So the recommendation, the Planning and Zoning Board had a meeting last night. And they made a recommendation. However, they made a slight amendment to that recommendation. They approved the ordinance unanimously. However, they recommended not to include the amendments to section 13-34, which was relating to appeals, because those amendments have removed the purview of the Planning and Zoning Board for appeals of decisions, administrative decisions by city staff in a development review process. You've had an appeal recently, and that's what that relates to. However, staff's recommendation is to keep those amendments. And so our recommendation for you tonight is approval of the ordinance as it is presented, including the section relating to appeals.
Real quick, when you just be clear on that again, just, and I'm saying be clear on it again, because I'm following you. You wanted to go to P&Z in an appeal or you don't?
We do not.
I know. I'm just trying to.
We do not.
So planning and zoning is saying we wanted to come to us before the commission.
That is what they said.
Got it. That was the discussion point. So, and just my only question is now. No, I'll wait for discussion. So
Okay.
I'll let you finish, Mr. Prophet. I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted that cleared.
I'm
'Cause
finished.
some of the planning and zoning members had issues with that
Yes.
and maybe reached out to some of us.
Staff's presentation is concluded.
Okay. Okay. Now that staff's presentation is concluded, are there any questions and comments by members of the city commission? Vice Mayor.
Okay. So the first one is there a minimum acreage for a project regardless of where it is?
There's not a minimum acreage for a project.
Well, the reason I ask is, so you're talking about our list of city-owned parcels that we review every year.
No,
Is that the map that you're putting on?
no, this map shows, this map shows you.
No, I mean, you alluded before this that there was going to be a list of properties that was going to be made available on the website.
We do that right now.
So is that the list of properties that you're talking about? The ones, some that are mini parcels and,
Yes, that.
Okay.
That provision was covered earlier this year and,
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
that, and it's
We
one
already-
and the same. It is one and the same.
We already feel, okay, I just wanted to make sure. And then, but it really didn't answer my question is the minimum. I know 40 units per acre, but let's say we've got 2-acre parcel. Is that a possibility that under what you're presenting here tonight, that someone could want to move forward to utilize
Theoretically, yes, there's not a minimum.
for rental?
Yes,
Okay.
as long as it's zoned, as long as it's one of these districts here.
And 700 is very, because I was trying to find out, it says 1,000 square feet or less, but now you're saying the least is 700. Is that equivalent to what a studio would be, let's say at Monarch or Solaire or some of those others?
What's that?
Some do offer studios.
Yeah, I mean, most likely the minimum would probably end up being a studio, or a 1-bedroom. either
And
one.
you mentioned something that what was considered in the affordable housing rate was similar to what our market value is, but can you give a range of that?
It's not really affordable. And what's the market value? Just saying.
I mean, I think Kathy had shared some numbers and it
Yes.
didn't seem like those were,
Well, I created a larger chart just in case.
pardon me?
A larger affordability chart here, just to give
Okay.
you more numbers, right?
The lace in your pocket there.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, you
Whipped it
did-
right out
That's
there.
the
yeah,
back- that's the
you-
back
you
pocket
knew
slide.
My question was coming.
So we anticipated there could be some questions related to what additional, rents could look like. So what you're seeing here are all those different percentage and affordability levels. What you'll find in a lot of, before this act, what you'll find in a lot of affordable, quote, affordable projects, development projects, they usually will deal with the 80% and below. And you'll see the rents on those are much more reasonable, right? However, the difference in this act is that it allows qualifying projects to use the 120%, which is moderate and very close to the definition of workforce housing. And that is a much higher rent. And that's you can kind of see how a studio there is almost equivalent to what market rate studios are. Probably less, but it's not too much.
Almost.
Yeah.
I think that was the key. So the administrative appeal, just to reiterate, is before us tonight is as the same as the administrative appeal is today. So it would come before you, the Director of Sustainable Development. And then if it were to be appealed, it would come to commission. Is that the way
As
It-
proposed in the ordinance,
tonight?
but not consistent with the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board.
I realize that. Okay. So, I was looking at what areas in and around Main Street, but your very tiny map has shown that. I'll have to look at it later.
We can get you a bigger one.
It would
And
be,
if this
that would be
is
good.
helpful at all, just related to the appeal process, just so you know, when the city commission
Go back.
when the city commission amended the code to basically become the final authority on everything, variances, site plans, and the Planning and Zoning Board became a recommending board on every single application that we have. This actually is a section of code that probably should have been updated at that same time, and it did not get updated. If that's helpful.
So what are the enforcement tools? Is that just, I mean, you referred to them, but what really are they?
Yeah, so one thing we'll be doing, they're subject to code enforcement, of course, because these are zoning code requirements. And to maintain affordability is going to be a zoning code requirement. It's also a state statute requirement now too. We'll also be adding a requirement that if a project is approved, they would have to execute a declaration of restrictive covenants. And those
Stays with it.
yeah, and it'll be, it runs with the land, and we record in the public records. and it'll be enforceable even if needed in the court system as well.
And we don't have anything in the pipeline right now.
No, we do not.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. All right, thank you.
I'm going to ask a couple quick things and then anyone would jump in. I had you bring this slide up because I think this is important for what we're doing this evening. Hypothetically, the city's still in charge of setbacks, parking, open space, landscape buffers, all those things, right?
Yes.
So we control all those things. So hypothetically, maybe we should make parking lots bigger and then allow it for subject commission decision, right? Just putting something possible things out there. You follow me here?
So
Gotta
adding,
have more parking spaces, gotta have bigger, the city commission could always reduce parking, but we should make people have more parking spaces because it's a real issue. That makes sense?
well,
Sheila's nodding her head, so at least she's picking me up. Now, I talked to a couple of planning and zoning board members and they kind of took issue that we weren't going to them. And I was like a welcome ear saying, you know what, I hear you, but I actually think we should change our other code, not just in this, taking it away from them as well. And I don't mean taking away from them. That sounds like, too authoritarian, but if you take the Mazda situation, we went like, it just, we took something to planning and zoning. It's like, it creates unnecessary work for the ultimate body, the arbiter body to be the commission. So my thought, and this is, am I too loud? Okay. That's, if there was nothing, it would be a commission meeting. If there was nothing. My point being, can we, if the commission wanted to change the other administrative review process, that your issue, whether yes or no, goes directly to the commission?
They are one and the same. We're speaking about the same procedure, same process, same.
That's what
section.
I wanted to make sure that there wasn't an issue, because the Mazda situation, and I just say it for the purposes of staff time, it took a bunch of staff time to rush something to P&Z and then get to us. So I'm very supportive of it not going to P&Z, much like that. I believe P&Z is an advisory board that they used to have, it goes back to the full site plan authority and things like that. So I'm supportive, and I don't think the P&Z members they spoke to necessarily like my position, but I think that an appeal should come directly to the commission directly. I think that's the fastest way residents or developers can get to us. My other question is, do we have the ability of increasing the square footage
of dwelling units?
Yep.
Yes, we do. Sure.
So my thought is that if we want to be forward thinking as a city, we increase the square footage of dwelling units with the understanding the city commission in circumstances could allow smaller unit sizes. But I think when you require a larger unit size globally, it changes possibly something in some concepts, the viability of a project. Just food for thought. So hypothetically, right, you make bigger dwelling units, the developer can come and say, hey, we want to go lower than that. But then again, that puts them in our purview, right?
In theory, yes.
Yeah. So I maybe hypothetically see that as a way that if we have higher square footage requirements in our dwelling units, it gives the commission a little more authority and say in terms of maybe density in a capacity of something we can control. Am I theoretically speaking correctly? The answer is no. It's okay. Did someone say no? I heard somebody like whisper no. Was that you?
No, I believe it was Kathy Mahaffey, but I have.
Is
the
that no,
same
Kathy?
thought.
No, I'm honest, because I'm trying to be as clear as I can on a very important issue of thinking of ways that we can suggestively have a little say in things traditionally we wouldn't. And that little say, I think, could maybe make a project want to be developed versus maybe not get a project developed. Because the square footage, when somebody is looking at numbers, that square footage is going to account for what you are going to be able to do unit wise, which affects ultimate bottom lines and things like that. So I'm a fan. I'm curious to hear the commission's thought on this, and I'll turn it over to everybody, to increasing the square footage requirements with the understanding that people could always come to us for less. But I'd like that threshold to be higher for that hypothetical developer's initial analysis. So that's my comment. Kathy, I'm all for, and I'm talking about just everything. I'm talking about the act as a whole.
So the changing the parameters, something like the unit sizes, those types of things are within your purview. We collected data from a number of different development districts, and the city definitely has some much higher unit sizes within the city, and that would be consistent. So that's not a problem.
Yes, that's what I like. Is there, I don't want to dive too deep because I'd
I
like
would
to speak
say
globally.
On the other rest of your question, if they don't comply with the standards, it's absolutely okay to make them go through a process, whatever our existing process is. That being said, I would be concerned with creating a process specifically related to these provisions that puts it in front of the commission. I'd have to do more research to evaluate.
So here's what I'll say simply. Saw some of the new development in downtown Fort Lauderdale. Their square footages, their units are terribly undersized. I don't think that's we're a family friendly, forward thinking city. I would like to see higher square footages per units in this structure. Yeah, I turn it over to everybody else, but I'm trying to be as
Thanks.
clear as I can. on this.
I understand the intent. How does that affect the 40 units per acre?
Well, if you have smaller unit sizes, you're still going to have a density. It's based on the size of the property. So the number of units you could have is based on the size of property.
Right. So if you're increasing the units, you're going to have less than 40 per acre
In theory.
Yes.
in theory.
Right.
Now, again, if we make that a blanket requirement, can we? We can't pinpoint where we want larger or smaller apartments, right? That's selective enforcement, right?
No,
Or no?
you would want to establish a minimum size.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Are we locked into the 40 per acre?
Yes,
Okay. So we are locked into that.
yes.
And
That is one of the preemptions.
okay. And then I did have one other question about enforcement. This is a 30-year commitment. Now, since the state is mandating this, right? Are they going to have an oversight commission
I'm not
coming
aware-
in, checking the paperwork, making sure these are affordable housing, making sure that we're still in compliance?
Yeah.
The state provides a number of, within the bill, provides a number of reporting requirements and things that happen and tools for like the property appraiser. Most of those, though, are tied to the property tax exemption. And if they get those property tax exemptions based on their affordable housing status through the property appraiser's office, we don't have any control over those. And those issues don't impact or have any relationship to our zoning concessions. And the concessions that we make are allowing this residential development on non-residential land, which is why that these provisions have been put in the code and will be also built into the deed, the declaration of restrictions that give the city enforcement opportunities and explain what will happen if they don't meet those criteria.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just have one question because I'm a little bit in the dark here. What happened with the meeting last night? I wasn't aware of any kind of discussion. Can you just kind of give me the skinny on what happened?
I mean, I wasn't there.
Well, I mean, obviously they're reading
I
out.
was giving a speech sitting next to you.
Yeah, I was there too. But
And Commissioner
obviously
Raley.
they reached out to you. So you obviously know more than I do about what happened. So I'm kind of curious.
The issue is, I mean, listen, I can say it as clean as I can. The issue is, should planning and zoning board have a seat at an appeals table? That's the issue. So Justin was there. So, I mean, Justin, I think and again, I'm not here and I didn't listen to the minutes. I'm having things relayed to me, right? So that's all I could go by. I'm not trying to like gossip or say that, but I think the issue, and Justin, please correct me if I'm wrong. The issue was the appeal that members of the planning and zoning board felt that an appeal and any sort of issue should go to them too.
Yeah, that's generally correct.
That,
Yeah.
that was it. So for lack of a better term, the lobbying effort was to say, hey, members of the commission, you appoint us, we should chime in on this too. So I'm just that was the discussion of maybe a lobbying effort on behalf of P and Z to say, hey, we want to chime in on it. And while I have great respect for that, I worry in those appeal situations. I mean, there's also a right to whoever's appealing. There's a cost. Regardless of whatever you felt on the Mazda issue, we hadn't done one of them in a while, but he paid lawyers and people to go to a P and Z meeting, and then you pay lawyers to come to a commission meeting. I just think that is unnecessary when we're the final arbiter. If the P and Z, if we wanted to give the authority to P and Z and say, hey, you're in charge of the appeal, it's not coming to us, I think that's a different story. But again, it would be Scott's judgment, who, is what it is. And then it would go to P and Z is what it is. And then to us, I just think it's an unnecessary step, but Commissioner Brody, does that answer your question?
Yes, that's
Okay.
Their concerns were that narrow with regards to the rest of the live local ordinance that you have before you tonight. They were completely supportive of. There were no
Yeah.
issues.
I would agree.
So that's what I was curious about, because I wasn't sure where that came from, but if it's just, that's what they're.
It was the planning and zoning board wanting a seat at the table for an appeal process.
Okay. All right. No, I'm good.
Commissioner Wasserman?
Thank you. Can you go over the mixed use, the 35% has to be, I guess the underlying, whatever the district, whatever kind of zoning it is over there. Is that what it has to be? Can you explain that, please?
The differing percentages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about, it sounds like you're talking about the definition of what a qualified development would look like under this. A minimum of all the total square footage, a minimum of that of 65% needs to be devoted to residential purposes. And 40% of that needs to be affordable. So the flip side of that is the rest of that, we want a minimum percentage of non-residential. And the reason why we did that, for obvious reasons, preserving tax base, preserving shopping, jobs, etc.
And that's why when for example, oh, never mind. I won't bring. So what are we doing? So when I look at this, what in our ordinance is anything combating? Is anything tackling this? Is anything addressing this or?
Yeah, the 35%.
Oh, okay,
That
that's it. Okay, good.
35% is not in the act. That's something we're
Adding in. Thank you.
And the act allows cities, I think, and what we believe is it was intended for cities to determine that some kind of percentage there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Vice Mayor.
So if the minimum unit size were to be considered, would that affect the amenities to the unit itself? In other words, do we still have oversight on what should be contained in each one of the units? And then so that a developer isn't skimping back on what goes inside the unit to
Yeah.
provide a larger unit
We,
and still be qualified as a legitimate project,
I think the minimum unit size will affect the economics of the project. But
would or won't.
it would,
Yeah.
it could, it may not, it could. It depends on what the commission establishes as unit size. And we don't, well, let me just put it this way. There are not regulations in the ordinance that deal with you're talking about amenities.
Right. Or,
Refrigerators and beds.
well, just because there are different spaces,
Can I
go to
clar-
some of our rentals and there are definitely differences in the qualities
100%.
of the project. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Are they scaling do we still have oversight as to whether they're able to scale back on what is provided within that?
Yeah, so
Bigger.
that's the
I
equivalency
get it.
section. I think what you're getting to is Terrell, did you want to say something? Okay.
I
She
just wanted
does.
to say that what the ordinance provides is that any affordable rate units would have to have the same fixtures and appurtenances and
Is everything.
amenities as the market rate units. But we don't necessarily get to dictate what those amenities are for the overall project.
Mhm.
And we never have.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
So while you're thinking, Sandy, I just have a suggestion to my colleagues on the commission. And that was after, briefly stepping off the dais, that if there was consensus between first and second reading to direct staff to do a different analysis for the square footage and use other residential apartments and things of that nature in the city, which they've already done. They just chose different ones. But if they chose a different subset to do an analysis on, that square footage number would increase. So I would ask if there's consensus. Again, I'm not making a motion, so I don't have to pass the gavel. I would ask if there's consensus to direct staff to come with different square footage numbers at a second reading that are consistent with median numbers that already exist in the city.
Market.
Correct.
Okay,
And
because
I'm being-
they gave some, but it,
Well, let me say what I said again after consulting with our deputy city attorney. I would ask for consensus to direct staff to do an additional analysis of other apartment complexes and residences to increase the square footage as the numbers add up to before second reading. Is there consensus on that? So there would be an additional presentation on that for a second reading.
can I ask a question? Kathy, is that what you forwarded to me? Or no? Is that what he,
That information was focused on the rents, but it'll be easy enough. We can pull
about the square footage?
footages,
Okay, got it.
For various apartments and complexes
And-
and approvals throughout.
and
the
use
state.
all of them.
And
okay.
we can do a comparison that shows all of them.
Yep,
Perfect.
no,
And can I just clarify for the record, I believe Vice Mayor Welch that you had requested just the rents comparable, just what the affordable rate rents are under the act, comparable to what the market rate rents are in the area. And so we provided that information to you based on your question. I'm happy to provide that to the rest of you. Again, it was just a pointed question, so I'm sorry that wasn't shared with the rest of you.
I knew when I said that you were going to have to say that, but no, it is helpful, as will be the square footage too. So I agree.
What, Commissioner Rell, yes.
Thank you. I would like, if we do another analysis, you're saying right now, the minimum is 700 square feet per unit
Well, in the
Where-
ordinance, it's
in
proposed.
the ordinance. Okay. If that's in the ordinance, can we go higher? Can we require higher square footage?
Yes.
We can't. Does it specify what type of unit that 700 square feet is? Is it a studio? Is it a one bedroom? I mean, by New York standards, 700 is palatial.
Yes. Yeah, I understand. It's
So,
one
Thank
bedroom.
God we're in Coconut Creek.
so I just, I'm trying to understand what units that pertains to.
That pertains to one bedrooms.
So it is a one bedroom.
Yes.
Okay.
And in the ordinance, we have 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom or more. So we will come back with an analysis for all of those unit sizes.
Okay. Does anyone, okay, so is there consensus on what, that the statement I made, is there consensus to direct staff as such?
And to include the rents for everybody.
Yeah, so I think Vice Mayor, unmute and say that.
And include the rents and the square footage, I think
So-
would be helpful.
So to be clear, for direction, are we all agreeing to direct staff on a consensus to look at the rents as well as the square footage with the understanding to try to increase the square footage? Yes?
Yes.
Got it. Consensus is given. I think the direction is there. Madam Brooks, understood?
Yes.
Thank you. Does anyone have any additional comments before I go, if there's like a public hearing on this item? Okay, Mr. Kavanaugh, did anyone put in any comments telephonically or in writing on this item?
No, they did not, Mayor.
Mr. Kavanaugh, I know Mr. Maderos, I think, spoke briefly on it. So this was probably the better time to speak, but we're going to just replay your comment for this part of the meeting. We'll just pretend it just happened. Does anyone here else wish to speak? Mr. Kavanaugh, anyone else signed in to speak on this?
No, they have not, Mayor.
Is anyone on the commission have anything further they want to say? We're going to call the roll on item 13. Mr. Kavanaugh, with the understanding that commission directed Madam Brooks' staff to, come with some changes. Oh, before I call the roll, and the only thing I don't think we addressed with staff was the appeal thing. We didn't address that. So does anyone, I think they wanted an answer for that, right?
No, it's written the way staff
Okay.
recommends it.
So everyone good with it as is, which means the appeal comes straight to us.
Like it, yeah,
Okay, so that was the only other issue. I apologize. Just wanted to make that point clear.
that's not a change, yeah.
No, that would be a change, but I didn't know because they specifically highlighted it in the last slide. So Mr. Kavanaugh, do you want to call the roll on the item?
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody.
Yes.
Commissioner Raley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Yes,
Mayor Rydell.
Yes. Agenda number 14 is postponed. It's just a weird way to phrase the postponement. We had an item having to do with animals that will be postponed. We're going to go to item number 15. It's our final item of the agenda this evening. It is an ordinance 2023-027. It is a first reading. Madam City Attorney.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Coconut Creek, Florida, authorizing the mayor or designee to execute the Second Amendment to the lease agreement with Broward County for the lease of real property located at 4900 West Copans Road for a 911 emergency dispatch center, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Motion.
Yeah. Commissioner Raleigh. I'm just waiting for the vice mayor to second or move something.
Second.
All right. It's moved by Commissioner Raleigh, seconded by Vice Mayor Welch. Sheila Rose
There you
for
go.
the win. Our deputy city attorney will present on the item. City
Good.
manager, city
Good.
attorney. I've given you a law degree.
Good
I
evening.
apologize.
Tonight before you is a second amendment to our lease for what we refer to as the PSAP. That is the 911 dispatch center located in our Public Works and Emergency Operations Center. Very candidly, we would like to have that space back because the city has our own needs. In fact, we are leasing space for our fire dispatch at another location. However, it is a very difficult prospect to suggest that we would displace a 911 call center, recognizing that they need to have that type of operation. What we have recognized in the negotiation of this lease is that this is a unique space, that it is critical infrastructure to the county, and it can't just be summarily displaced. So we've been working for several months with the county staff to negotiate a lease that provides for a couple of enhancements. As you may be aware that they have been in that facility for over 10 years. For over 10 years, we have maintained a below market lease rate on that space. The lease before you tonight provides for an escalation in that lease rate, provides it much closer to a market rate lease for that space. You know, small spaces sometimes are more expensive than your larger office complex. So staff feels very comfortable that we have increased the lease rate to what would be available on the private market. In addition, we have evaluated the facility, and as you know, because this facility needs to operate 24/7 and it's critical infrastructure, they can't afford to have any downtime, which requires redundancy in our mechanical equipment. So you recently saw some improvements that came before you for air handling systems. We have negotiated with the county to provide for paying basically 50% of the cost of those improvements. We think that's a reasonable, fair share for them to maintain that space. Furthermore, we have fairly aggressively suggested that this is a 2-year lease. They are working on a relocation plan to move to their new operation down off of Cypress Creek. They need, in our opinion, to move with good haste and to keep us informed of any problems along the way. So we have indicated that there will be no more extensions beyond that 2-year lease. We need that space for our own staffing. We are no longer using that dispatch center. So that is identified here in your lease as a premium if, for instance, they were to occupy the space beyond the lease term. So that, we wouldn't necessarily evict them as a tenant, but they would be responsible for a premium. So there's been some ongoing negotiations with the county staff. I did hear from the county staff and they were unable to be here tonight. Unfortunately, his father is in the emergency room. So I indicated that I would make the presentation.
I apologize, but who on county staff?
Michael Ruiz,
Okay.
Deputy or Assistant County Administrator.
And they have what, three assistants,
Yes.
3 deputies
I think they have 1 deputy and 2 assistants.
and
I'm
Monica.
not sure.
So they have about like 4, I believe, 5 different people that are considered executive staff in the county administrator's office. I'm not locking you to it, but I think that's
I
it.
think that's about.
And how many attorneys do they have in their county attorney's office?
I don't know.
I'm not making a joke. Terrell, how many county attorneys are there?
A lot. I'm not sure of the exact number.
Over 40. Over 40. You got anything else you want to say?
No.
Okay. I think it's totally offensive that nobody from the county's here. Totally offensive. And I think it's totally offensive that we're $100,000 apart on a $1 billion entity that doesn't want to come to the table and deal with this. Totally offensive. And I'll lead with that. I'll turn it over to my colleagues if they have any comments about this.
So was there any pushback directly from them when they saw this? Or have they seen this yet?
Oh, Madam City Manager, I think this is appropriate. I apologize. Why don't you highlight what's led us here and the communications that have been provided to the county?
So this has been going on for a very long time, even prior to the current county administrator. As you know, when we wanted to leave the regional dispatch center, it's taken many years to do so. However, under the previous administrator had indicated that if we were going to leave, they wanted to leave our facility, and we were happy with that. We want our space back. So we were on track for that to occur. And then they had the change in administration and, all of the things that go with that. We have been working with them for quite some time to knowing that this lease was expiring on September 30th. And we believed that they were going to be able to get out, but the negotiations have been so prolonged that, it just became clear that it's a 24/7 911 operation. And, on one hand, we certainly don't want to be a bad neighbor, but we do need them to get out, and it's taken them an extraordinary long period of time. They've been aware for a long time that we want them out. In recent conversations with them under the new administration, they had indicated that they need 2 years, that they were working on these other things. But, quite frankly, we've heard many reasons why they haven't been able to get out for many years. And it's difficult. I feel like the city is in a difficult position because as much as that we want them out, we need the space. It's very difficult just to kick them out, and so in my conversations with the county administrator, we said, okay, 2 years, and we want to be made whole on our capital costs. And she assured me that we would get there. We are not there. We have not been able to get there, and time has run out. So this agreement is coming before you without their approval. She had indicated she has taken the dollar amounts as far as she was authorized to do so. And we're here at the final hour. So I have this agreement on here for you all to approve in the hopes that they will ultimately approve that. If they do not, we will be proceeding with having them removed. And that it goes on to, those are very complicated processes. We don't want to go down that road. We're not that far apart. I'm hoping, that they will be able to take this and that the county administrator will be able to get the authority to have it approved.
So I just want to share a little addition of that, because earlier in the conversation, I think to my colleagues, Sheila and Karen brought me kind of in the fold a little bit, hoping that, sometimes larger voices could have a reason. Our county commissioner is aware of the situation. I was aware of the kind of the clashing. I was shocked at the difference of how far we're apart because we're not like, we're talking $80,000. That's how far we're apart with the county. It's astonishing to me we're there. Karen brings up a great point. We can't kick them out. I think in good faith, none of us are going to say, let's physically remove a PSAP center. That being said, I'm of the position, and she's not going to like what I'm saying, but I mean, I think actually you will like it. I take that back. I think this agreement is too generous. That's what I think. Staff has bent over backwards to make this cost neutral. Bent over backwards to make it cost neutral. So the reality now is why? Why are we making something cost neutral if they do not want to play in the sandbox with us? And I hate to invoke this because this this came up since then. There was recently a tragedy in the county because of costs. And I don't know, I didn't read the article. I don't know the budget and things like that, but you know, that tragedy happened on a really old helicopter and there've been requests for years. It's terrible to mention it, but there's never a dollar amount on public safety, which is why we're not going to kick them out. But at this point, change the agreement, increase it. That's my opinion. Because at this point, we've done everything we could do as a municipality to bring them, to force them, aside from the 5 of us going down there and during public comment, begging the elected officials, please do this. We're not the beggars here. We didn't do anything wrong. So that's my pontificating. But it's been frustrating me because I've tried to have that dialogue. I don't know the right answer, but now, so I don't know if you're going to like it or not. I think the agreement's too generous, and we're handing them a gift for the smallest negotiable amount that they have like funding for like a nonprofit more than the difference in this contract.
May I, for the record, I did see, but the month to month rate, what would that be? Once the lease expires,
Are
So
you
the
saying
way
once
the,
the pending lease, the 2 years.
so the
the
way
2 years,
the
month to month.
lease works is that it would be the total lease amount due plus an escalating $10,000 every month. So month 1 would be 14,000 plus 10. Month 2 would
Yeah,
be
I have it. I just
14,000
wanted a
plus
record for the
20
record.
plus 30 plus
Mhm.
40. So it escalates
Right.
very aggressively.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, and then
That's really to incentivize them
Yeah.
to get out, because we just have no other way to do it.
but let me just say this as well, that there's other that's after the expiration of a 2-year lease,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And there's the ability of, God forbid, we're constructing, there's construction delays. Can we extend it as a year?
Yep.
It gives the city manager and the commission full authority to extend and not go into breach, correct?
We would not be extending the agreement. They would just be paying the penalty above and beyond. We're not looking, there will be no extensions of the lease.
But to that point, this is really not to them in their budget. Even the premium additional rent after the 2 years of them not getting out is really not going to hurt a hole in their pocket. It's still delaying them providing their own stand-up facility and using ours. They're still coming out pretty good. So, I mean, I really feel that because we've given them multiple time of the, what we were doing. We gave
They've known
them
for a long
notice
time.
exactly when we made the decision to pull the plug on 9/11 and put the money in the budget and go forward with another dispatch.
17, Sandy?
It's a long time
17.
coming.
Yes.
And I'm just
17.
saying, there should be no consideration at all to their not planning for that. I mean, they knew we were doing it. It was not a secret. So I would agree. I don't think the premium past the 2 years is going to do it. And if they are angry about and refusing to look at what we've proposed for the 2 years, just make it more. Why not? I mean,
I think that is okay in theory. However, we have to be prepared for them not to agree to it. And then what will we do? We have to be prepared for that.
Well, can we have a mediation, something,
Well, we'll go
someone
into
come
conflict
in and
resolution.
and
Right.
invoke it? I mean,
I am
something.
prepared for that.
We,
I am prepared for that.
somebody has to do that. I mean, we
If I
can't
might
come to
just
a
add-
standstill when we're the landlord.
Yeah, but we're being portrayed as, oh, it's going to be bad Coconut Creek. But the reality in this narrative, I think we win, and I think we have to take a hard stand. That's my opinion.
I just think it should go, I mean, it could go to mediation or some other form, but to get the
I think
people
it's- I
at,
think it's
There's a process.
get the people at the table and come to some
But
conclusion.
you, Sandy, agree to a little different of a 2-year?
Yes.
All
You
right.
mean of an increase?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
I think at this point,
That's fun.
it would cost them less to stay than set up a new facility,
They have said
is,
so.
even with the penalties.
even with the penalties. It's my point.
So we have a current lease. That current lease have penalty clauses in it? No.
It expires on the 30th.
Well, I hope we learn our lesson on that one.
Can I just say for the record, I was not here when that was taking place.
And I was not in this position.
All right, everybody's kicking it.
That's a good disclaimer coming up on 2 annual reviews.
Yeah, right?
Everybody,
Blame the other people.
Let me write this down.
everybody can't keep checking out on that now. I'm just saying.
And I will note that this is an ordinance and requires 2 readings. So we will,
So-
we'll be back.
I don't mean to cut you off, John, but do you have the ability, if this commission passes this ordinance, to change the numbers if the commission directs you as such?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Brody, I apologize for interrupting.
Actually, that was exactly what I was gonna say. So, yeah.
So if we go forward today and then we adjust and, we increase like he's talking about, and then second reading, we approve that, but if the county doesn't agree, then it was all nothing and it's just going to go to conflict resolution? Is that, or not an eviction notice, right?
So if they don't agree to this agreement, then there is no lease and the other one expires. We have no relationship with them and they're still in our building.
It's great. Landlord benefit. I wish I could take the.
But eventually that is what could happen is if they don't agree, it's just like you're out, you're gone.
So yes, so if they don't agree to what you approve, and then there is no agreement in place, then we need to start proceedings to having them removed. And there is a process for that when you are dealing with government agencies.
So I will say I will make one last ditch effort, and I would urge my colleagues to do the same. If there's a modified agreement this evening, that we go to our respective colleagues again. I think I'm going to be seeing our county commissioner tomorrow. He just arrived back from Vancouver on a goodwill mission for county trade. And tomorrow I will advise him of this and where this is heading. And I'm hoping it moves the needle, but it hasn't up until this point.
I just want to make note, just so you're aware, from their side, from their concerns, they have lease agreements with the other 2 PSAPs. And they have concerns if what they do with our agreement will cause issues with their others. So that will probably be some of what you hear back on that. So I just want to make you aware.
But isn't that like the definition of planning? Like, isn't that like, honestly, like Jeff, sorry. We have a lease on that place in Lions Tech Park, right? How long is the lease for?
5 years.
Is there an additional addendum on it?
Is there?
Like, is there an opt-in on it? I'm just curious.
There's an option to extend.
For how long? I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm making a point.
I believe it's 5 years, but I'm not sure.
I'm almost positive it is, because I think it could put you there for 10 years, which is anticipated that we'll have a fire station within that 10-year period. You plan for that in city government. You don't have random leases with cities for PSAP centers as county for 911. It's like, it's crazy. If you really think of it like that, that's crazy. And they don't even know who's going to be administering it. There's still a match between the sheriff and the county of who's administering 911. I mean, thank God we're not a part of it anymore. But like, that's the dysfunction.
Isn't that why we went to Carl Springs?
Yeah. We have a lease with them now. It's a good lease. So I guess anyone have any? Yeah, I know. Terrell, you were here for that one, right?
Yes.
A woman, a few words. Do you need anything other direction from this commission in terms of hypothetically, if there's a consensus to increase the monetary amount, is that something, if we agree to increase the monetary amount on a prospective lease, is that something the amounts can be pulled between a first reading and second reading? You can independently talk to all of us to get consensus on that.
So what we're talking about is the base rent amount.
Yep, that's it. That's my position. I'd like to go down the line with that. Commissioner, Vice Mayor Welch.
Well, I would ask that you give us the flexibility to figure out where to put those increases in there, because if the county is willing to negotiate that with us, I would want to help them do it in a way that makes it palatable for them.
I agree. And I think that there's creative solutions if there's concerns for the other PSAPs that could be
Correct.
dealt with in, we'll call it hardware costs or I got it. Okay, understood. Commissioner Raleigh.
Yeah. I would like to have a breakdown. And I'm sure it was in here, just not at my fingertips right now, about market values, square footage, the extras that we do charge, what it costs us as a city, and how we can give and how we can how we do transfer those costs to the county.
We have all of that.
It's going to be
Right. I know you do.
offensive when you look at those numbers
Okay.
and compare them to what
So
we're
it
offering
should
the-
not cost us to have them here. Should not cost our residents a dime to have them here. Okay?
Got it.
Brody,
They already pay through county taxes.
Brody,
I'm on board with that. You know, bill them,
Wasserman.
make it hurt.
Absolutely.
Is it fair that the commission has given consensus and direction on staff to maybe being a little more aggressive in your lease procedures? Agreed. I think Karen, I think you were astute with the request of the flexibility in the negotiation for the city attorney's office and the city manager's office with a proper, well-worded lease agreement. Anything else on this subject? Let's vote with the direction, understanding it's a first reading, understanding there'll be a different document before us on a second reading. Mr. Kavanaugh. Oh, Mr. Kavanaugh, I apologize. Any questions or comments that were previously submitted in writing or anyone signed in?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Anyone here want to speak? Seeing none. Mr. Kavanaugh, call the item number 15, an ordinance on the city commission.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Commissioner Raleigh.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Yes.
Mayor Rydell.
Yes. Madam Brooks, city manager
you.
report.
Few items tonight, related to the, employee survey. As of our last update, they have interviewed over 70, employees, to date. We were, the investigator had indicated to us that the employees that have been interviewed have been expressing appreciation for the process and the opportunity to be heard. So we were pleased to hear that kind of feedback. And that moving forward, the final report will go to the city attorney and the city commission as requested in the last meeting. Regarding the turnpike, as you know, the public hearing is next week on the 21st. The latest proposal from the Turnpike Authority, or APDOT, or the agency is, was to reduce the lanes from 10 to 8, from Atlantic to Copans. And we would be seeking to request that be extended up to the Sawgrass area, reserve rights for maintaining our comments and adding comments, as well as having them do another PD&E when they go to seek adding the additional 2 lanes to make it to 10 lanes. And so that is what staff want. That's the direction we want to head in, is to accept that with a variety of conditions, versus doing an all or nothing fight that we believe we would not win. We know we have other projects that they're working on that will impact our area at the Sawgrass Expressway and up by and Lyons, as well as the neighborhoods up in that area, SOS Village and so on. So, you know, we want to continue to work with them for the best outcome for the city in the big picture and in the long term. And we think that this their latest proposal will help do that. So we're just looking for your direction on whether to go that way or whether to gear up and go for the all or nothing fight.
May I ask a couple clarification points?
Sure.
So if the city commission gives consensus to kind of, I hate to use the term acquiesce, but to pallet 8 versus 10 and to continue that, there is still obviously fights in regarding access in terms of an egress of the turnpike.
That is,
There's still fights in regarding buffering and sound walls. There's still fights on directional traffic. There's still actually a very large, robust conversation that public participation is necessary for, not necessarily just in regarding the lane issue. Is that a fair statement?
I would say that's a fair statement.
That's just what the clarification I wanted. Madam Brooks, I'll turn it back to you and then I'll turn it to the city commission for.
And I just want to note that the need for the additional 2 lanes to make it to 10 wouldn't happen for another 16 years. And we believe that there's a lot that can change in those 16 years as it relates to technology and mass transit
Flying cars.
and so on. So yeah, so, with all of those factors in mind, and the ability to move forward, we think this is the best course of action.
Commissioner Wassman?
Sure. Listen, I'm not gonna say yes on that. I'm not for that. We still have a meeting on the 21st to go to. Still looking forward to, seeing as many people as we can get out there. I'm not just going to sit here and say, all right, cool. They're going to say, they probably went, it's like a negotiating. It's, so now they're down to 8. At this point, I can't go with that. I'm willing to continue to fight. I don't know what it will do in the long run, but I'm not willing to accept 8 today.
Okay. Commissioner Brody?
I respect Mr. Wassman's comments, but I think there's a lot of fighting that has to happen. And I think if we sit there and stay in their face, we will lose some more important ones that we need to get. So I'm okay with the 8 lanes as long as we keep the fight up for the noise buffers and things like that, especially when we start talking about Texas turnaround and Alliance Road. There's a whole lot more fighting to go. And I think if we don't start looking at this realistically and we go in there with the intention of nothing, we're not, it's going to backfire. So my feeling is, go with the 8 because I know the other battles are coming.
Just real quick, do you not like the Texas turnaround?
I hate the Texas turnaround. Hate it.
I
It's
think
on
like,
Lions
I
Road.
think it's like the best thing that's ever happened to transportation.
No, garbage.
Okay.
And you want to know why?
Line.
I'll tell you why.
I think,
fire
in
up.
concept is one
I
thing, but at Lions, it's an issue.
I don't necessarily agree, but that's not the topic for right now.
No,
We can disagree for another day. Commissioner Raley on the subject at hand.
In my opinion, I don't think there's a more important fight than this one right now. We're talking about in our backyard. We're talking about an additional lane on either side, going north and going south. I don't see how one more lane can make that much of a difference. It will do, it will impact our residents' quality of life, even just the additional 2 lanes. We're talking about 4 to 5 years of construction in their backyard. We're talking about senior citizens. We're talking about families on Sunshine Drive that right now, even the way things stand, they told us their beds in the middle of the night because of the traffic shake. They can feel the vibrations. Bringing 2 more lanes west is going to impact them even more. I've fought too hard for too many years to acquiesce to the additional 2 lanes. If they're willing to compromise and come down to an additional 2 lanes, which equates to 1 lane on each side, I think they need to restructure their thinking and their roadways. I can't accept it. I'm sorry.
Can you tell me what you mean by one lane on each side? Because if it's expanding to
Sure.
two lanes,
Of course.
it's going to be 2 lanes on each side.
No, yes. Well, what's going to happen is right now there's 6 lanes.
Right.
They're going to extend the turnpike to 8 lanes. They're going to build the additional 2 lanes on the west side,
Right.
which would be Winmore and Sunshine Drive. But they're going to split those 8 lanes into 4 on the north and on the south. But the expansion is going to be completely on the west side.
Sheila, can you speak to that?
Maybe you can make it clearer.
I
for
would,
me.
I believe.
I
that
haven't
you-
seen a diagram
Right,
that
I-
suggests the 4 lanes are being split.
I believe that you are correct. However, we have not seen the detailed plans. What Commissioner Rayleigh is talking about is the current proposal, the 10-lane proposal that we've seen, and we've seen the plans, shifts the center line of the road, keeping the east edge of pavement where it is and having all the widening to the west. We presume that because of the issues associated with the gas line, that the 8-lane alternative would follow a similar path where they would shift the center line, not as far, but they would shift it to the west and the widening would be on the west. We have not seen the plans, and that's why we asked for a delay in the public hearings.
Okay, now I did not know that.
No, that's not true necessarily, because in one of the alternate plans, they have expansion room on the east side, just not enough to accommodate the 10-lane original proposal. Yeah. So, I mean, we all saw the alternate, you saw, there is an alternate plan that has construction on the east side.
According to the turnpike.
not, like, calling you out,
No,
I'm
no,
just
no.
saying, 'cause
According to the turnpike staff, that alternative impacts the buffer zone around the gas pipelines. And that's why it was not the preferred alternative. Yes, we've seen alternatives.
I'm not talking about changing and moving the gas lines. I believe there was, what was it, 8 feet? I'm just,
And there may be.
Okay.
portion-
I'm not
there may be-
trying to
we've
argue the
not
point.
seen, we've not, and that is part of the problem.
so let me give you, let me just say, it does make a difference, but let me say a hypothetical right now. This commission, before we go further down the rabbit hole, because I see a split coming. And I don't like that. I'd like us all to be on the same page on one of the most important issues. And I appreciate your comment, Jeff, and I appreciate your comment, John. You know, I'm going to say one thing, and then I want to have just a historical point. I'm sorry, Jackie. I didn't hear you. No. Listen, I appreciate all of you. I know it's late, but this is the last time an issue came before this commission of this great of importance. It was with the landfill. Sandy and myself were here, and I say it because it was early in my life on this dais. And one of the hardest decisions as a commissioner was to approve an agreement with Waste Management that allowed for them to continue to put processable waste in the Monarch Hill landfill. Okay, we have all spoke to residents and campaigned on issues of fighting the landfill. Every single one of us on this commission and previous commissioners. The hardest thing this dais had to do was cut a deal with Waste Management. That deal was by far and away the best option for the residents of Coconut Creek, and I stand by approving that deal. I hope the vice mayor does as well. It was a difficult decision on that agreement because it could have ended up both ways. In what I do every day, the life is a deal. I don't agree. Everyone could have their position. This may be the best option. It may be the worst option. Credibility matters. By acquiescing and saying, okay, we're okay with 8. Being okay with 8 may say we're okay with 1 and 1 on each side. Being okay with 8 could be we're okay and still fighting the scaling of the project, the construction of the project, the timing of the project. That could be saying we're okay with 8 only if you agree to complete it in 6 months, 4 years. Those are all points that we can argue. And I want to just have a larger global conversation about it before, as I see this trending to a way that I'll swing vote on it. Right. But I say it from a perspective of there's so many other points to fight than just this comment. So that's, I'm going to say that. Sheila, did anything I say is incorrect?
No.
And if this commission does give consensus to say, hey, we're okay with an 8, she said, no, nothing I said was incorrect. That if we agree to 8, that could be, if it's all being staged and timed on the west side, that's something then we're fighting it. So I think the preliminary consensus on moving. Okay, so Sandy, I'll let you continue. I wanted to say that because these are the hardest decisions we make on this desk by
Well-
far and away that have the greatest impact. And sometimes you have to look at the greater good. And that agreement we did with Waste Management years ago, that was to this day for the greater good of this community, and I stand by it. And that's why we fight them every single day continued, because they just want to get greedier and greedier. I can't tell you how it's going to work in the Turnpike. I can tell you we have the right firm that opened the right doors, the right lobbyist firm, period, end of story, that opened the doors to get us to this point. So then the question is, how much more are you going to get before you get no credibility? I'll leave it at that. I turn to the vice mayor, and before I chime in on my position, I'll open it up to anyone else, my colleagues.
I think I remember that the waste management settlement was line by line with Mr. Moskowitz right next. He happened to be seated next to me. But
Oh, he was-
I think the hardest decision that was for me was early in my tenure here, voting on regional dispatch services. And while in theory, it sounded like a dream team, we all know where that went. And I really am not proud that we voted for that. But in reality, for the regional dispatch, it was in 2013. And because it sounded like, a great idea. But we've seen how that worked out. But I was of the first accord to say yes, very, very reluctantly, that I would accept an 8-lane expansion, but not if it's 8 lanes and then an additional division down those 4, between those 4 of those lanes, between the other 4, and moving the center line over to the west. That's an entirely different scenario than what I have seen. Now, if they're starting from the center where we are today, and then the 8 lanes on both sides, the additional 2 lanes on both sides, east and west, that's an entirely different scenario. But we haven't seen anything.
We're
We've
at a
seen
decent-
what Christine, Representative Himchowski says that they showed her. They didn't show us. So, now I'm really torn. I
But
thought that I knew exactly what I wanted to do, than to say reluctantly. And I know I've been in this since, Kristen Jacobs was sitting at the table with us when we first started this, about the expansion. But what we have to realize is everything north of Sawgrass is all destined for 10 lanes. Now, I just don't understand how they're going to wiggle down and accommodate us to even 8. I really, really worry about that, because everything north and south is happening around us. We're the middle. We're the middle of this Oreo, and this it's not a good picture. It doesn't look good for us. So I thought that if there was a chance that from the center over, it would be equal, would be a way different option, because 10 is coming from the south, 10 is going to come from the north. We don't have a lot of wiggle room. And we just have to consider that. I don't really know now where I'm going with this, because I didn't even, that's why I kind of got an aha moment when Jackie was talking. I thought, what has she seen that I haven't seen?
But we're
I
in a
didn't-
distinct disadvantage. We have requested that the public hearings be continued, and that request, even though they were through our law firm, were denied.
Well,
And
what
it
is she
very
seeing that I'm
unusual.
not seeing? I'm
No,
or the rest of.
we have no plans. The way that the letter was structured is that they, in concept, were going to go to 8 lanes for that section from Atlantic Boulevard to Copans Road. I'm sure well, I'm not sure. We have not seen those plans. Their letter indicated that they would develop those plans during the next phase, the design phase. And the thing about that worries me, and it should worry all of us, is this public hearing is the conclusion of their NEPA process, where they are required to seek public engagement. The Turnpike is in a unique position. They are an enterprise fund, and they do not seek they're not federally funded. They have their own money and they build those projects. They do comply with the NEPA process. But at the conclusion of that NEPA process, which is following the public hearing, and then there's an appeal process, they make a decision. And our options are limited at that
Limited.
time.
And also the newsletter, at the MPO today, they it talked about it going from Atlantic to Wiles.
So
The Turnpike newsletter. I mean, the reason for these virtual and in-person meetings. Now, it didn't talk about Atlantic to Copans.
Well, the letter from Allison Stetler that's included provides that they intend to phase the portion of the project in Coconut Creek, with the 8-lane section being from Atlantic to Copans. Then they show another small 8-lane section through the intersection of the Sawgrass Expressway. And the presumption is that's where they're dropping the premium or the Lexus lanes, the managed lanes, because right now the 10-lane proposal provides for 2 of those premium lanes in both direction.
But that plan is predicated on the fact that that's why they're bottlenecking it. They're going from on the shift they believe the 10 to the 8 because the Sawgrass has those interchange routes. So they believe it's a logical conclusion to bottleneck. That's what came up in that last meeting with that lady. That's really nice.
Jocelyn.
That she says. So it's a bottleneck concept, which is the only reason I think they're coming to the table. So that's why, listen, I tip my hat. I think this is the right thing to do, to fight on a lot of other issues except for this, only because there's so many other little issues that I think matter. So, I mean, I'll turn it over to Terrell.
Can I just say something
What is
really
NEPA?
quickly?
Can you just say for everybody? I mean, I hate the acronyms,
that?
but no one knows like what the acronym is. Does anyone know?
NEPA, the
Hold on a
National
sec. Brody just told me. I don't know what it is. Brody,
Policy.
what's NEPA? You just
Policy
dropped the mic on me. Whoops. All right.
Can I just clarify something? So really what's before you right now is you have 2 options. We have 2 hearings next week, one on the 20th that's online and the one on the 21st that's live. Your 2 options are 1, we can launch an all-out fight, or 2, what we can do is we can essentially say, we recognize that you are trying to attempt to provide some level of compromise with the 8 lanes. Thank you for listening to us. However, we reserve our rights until we see what that cross section looks like, because we haven't seen it yet. We've asked for you to delay the hearing. You have not honored that request. Therefore, we would like to reserve our rights until we see it. Those are really the 2 options as I see them.
And all the way up to Sawgrass, not just Copans or even Wiles, because we know that portion is going to happen. We know it's going to happen, and that too will impact our residents. Cocoa Lake, Banyan Point. I mean, what is it? Not the Tallowood Mobile Home Park. I mean, the list goes on. So there's the same scenarios that are happening in Sunshine Drive and
SOS.
in Winmore
Right.
and
The traffic
SOS.
scenarios.
They're right there in
You gotta
in
fix
that
that.
bottleneck. So,
So, I mean, I guess my question is this, Terrell, what you're suggesting, because I mean, before this meeting started, it seemed to me that there was either consensus to, I hate to use the term support. Right? So I guess Sheila or Karen, somebody please highlight us, like what do you believe they want to hear from us?
So
That's, I guess, the.
to go away, that's what they
in-
want to
Well, I
hear.
know, but no, but I guess that's
In our-
the fairest question, because right now we're pitting ourselves against each other
Right.
on bullet points of like you're for it or not. None of us are for it. So I guess the question is, what does the Turnpike want to hear from the Coconut Creek City Commission at this first public hearing.
The
my
Turnpike
question.
very candidly has not asked for our opinion. They provided a proposal. And our opinion is, just from a staff perspective, is we want to make sure they don't remove that option from the table, which is, that is not an option that's in the PD&E study. And
So
part of-
listen, I'm just gonna, I mean, we could belabor
Not
the
giving
point.
it to us.
So they never cared, they've never cared, they still never care, but we're gonna say, we're good with this now. That's really what we're saying here.
No,
What are we gonna do anything then?
I think the
Am I missing
goal,
something?
the goal is,
Tell me what I'm missing.
the goal is to actively affirm getting that as the commitment on the record.
We paid a lobbying firm. Are you then saying to our lobbying firm that Coconut Creek's okay with 8 with conditions? I'm trying to understand what consensus of this commission does. I don't get it. Do you get it, Jackie?
Yes, I think what they're trying to do, or what we're trying to do, that this is at least the minimum or the maximum of what they're going to do. They want, and when I say we, I'm saying the city wants to be locked into maximum
Maximum.
of 8 lanes.
And
But-
where are they?
And we don't want you to go back to the 10.
And nothing in their studies discusses this 8-lane alternative. So we could potentially go to the public hearing and object to everything they've presented. They could make a decision, they could ratify that decision and go forward with the 10-lane project. So the option at the public hearing is to grab the 8 lanes and have it be at least the new floor. We've
Well, the new
reserved.
But
ceiling.
reserving
No,
our
no, new
rights
ceiling.
on the
The new
record.
ceiling,
You said the floor, the
the
new
new
ceiling.
ceiling.
So Terrell's idea of a letter that
Yes.
says what it says, I would support that.
But you're also saying that eventually it's going to go to 10 lanes. Because in 16 years, is that what they're saying? In 16 years, so we're gonna have 8 lanes now. That's what they're saying, 8 lanes, and in 16 years, we're gonna go to 10.
But
So
we would
that's-
reserve our rights to object before it gets to that point and request additional studies and additional public hearings.
20.
And you're also telling me, you're also saying that they haven't they haven't asked for our viewpoints, or they haven't asked for our
I
opinion.
don't know that that's necessarily
Like, how does that,
correct. We have had meetings at the level of our lobbyists as well as Representative Honchowski with FDOT and the Turnpike, trying to get some concessions made by the Turnpike. And that's what presumably led to this offer by them. While I don't think the offer is quite where we want it to be, I do believe that they are to some extent listening to what we say and seem to care at least a little bit as to our opinion, or they wouldn't have proposed that.
I was walking the other day, and I bring this, I was walking with a dear friend in South Creek. We were doing a nice walk the other day, and he had some interesting things to say about their soot from the turnpike on the cars. And so I don't just want to talk about Sunshine Drive. We're going to talk about South Creek as a whole, right? I mean, there's soot on cars, there's soot on roofs. I mean, the noise, we were walking, we heard it. So this isn't just a Sunshine. Say we bring up Sunshine Drive, and like some people at Sunshine Drive are like, we want the wall. Like, I don't know if you saw the CBS thing, but like, here I am saying we're against it, and these 2 people from Sunshine Drive are like, we want the wall. I was just like, whatever. But it's very to think that we're not a part of a dialogue, and obviously they're a bigger entity, right? We're and you get the home rule, you talk about all these things, but we're the small guy, and these big guys are coming in, and I'm concerned that if we give 8, they're going to wind up doing 10. I'm very concerned with that.
Throughout our history, we've been able to put off the expansions of the turnpike for many, many years. And the additional, like I had said earlier, the additional 2 lanes wouldn't be needed for another 16. A lot can happen in that. So we should be looking to get what we can get and not end up with 10 lanes now. And so any kind of delays to that 10 lanes is good for the city.
All right, let's just give us consensus one way or the other. I mean, I think we all have our position. So you're either giving consensus. I think Terrell phrased it the most artful. You're either giving consensus to saying Terrell, say it again. please, so the commission knows what the consensus is.
Thank you for the 8 lanes. However, we reserve our rights until we have the opportunity to view what a cross-section looks like. We also reserve our rights on the other issues as it relates to any future expansion. We also would like for you to,
Walls, egress, ingress.
right, we could
Okay.
reserve our rights as to all of that.
Wasserman, you give consensus for the staff to write the letter? Yes or no? You want to pause? You want to wait?
And actually,
I'd rather,
You're out what everyone else votes?
yes, please.
Okay, Brody,
Yes.
Jackie,
As long as we're saying we reserve the right
Yeah.
to make, yes, I'll be okay with that. I invite anyone to come to Winmore to see just how close and what our residents are going through. And I just want to make a statement because to me, it doesn't make sense that instead of going to the east at all and coming and the west, they're going to put 2 lanes on the west and then come back and do reconstruction and spend all those funds again. It doesn't make sense.
Sandy.
And would your letter include, you said future expansion, but can we dial it out, down completely?
Who's writing the letter, by the way?
so my suggestion would be that we would have our outside attorney, Wilson
Yes.
Atkinson with Tripp Scott send the
But-
letter.
I'm good with that.
But with,
That way we can preserve our legal objections on the record.
okay,
Yeah, and it's a lobbyist. It's not me.
I
Yeah.
would say, yes, Terrell, thank you for your recommendation.
Yeah, I'm with that. I think what's also really important to include is Jackie's concern on the east and west construction thing. Reserve our right with that. Wasserman, you're up now.
Well, you already have consensus, so I'm going to stick to keeping the fight, launching a fight. Thank you.
Look at that. All right, you got consensus from the commission,
Thank you. And then the
just for the letter.
right.
I think we've all made it very clear, all of our intents to continue forward fighting. Karen, you got anything else?
It's just one more.
What are you asking for consensus on?
I'm not asking for consensus on anything. I just want to, I was asked to share what our backup processes is for our audio and our visual during meetings. So regarding our audio live stream, our primary mechanism for that is Granicus. Our backup for that is YouTube. And if they both fail, we have an audio archive that is maintained by a recorder software. And that audio file will be uploaded to the website after the meeting. As far as audio video live stream, our primary mechanism is YouTube. The backup to YouTube would be Granicus and audio only. And again, if they both fail, the audio archive is maintained by a recorder software that would be uploaded to the website after the meeting. Regarding,
What?
I was,
I don't understand what you said that for.
because I
asked
was
her to.
requested to.
Oh,
I
Okay.
asked her to because I realized the request that was made at a previous meeting, and I just wanted to ensure that I know there's a lot of things technology wise that I don't know. And I just wanted to ensure that what we are required to provide in the way of Granicus and all the other backups that we have to keep as a matter of public record is not going to be compromised by additional things that were requested. And then can we do them now? Will it jeopardize what we currently have, or
get it.
does it have to start from scratch? That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I was really confused on why you just rattled to that. Now it makes sense.
And so to
It was
continue
me.
on, so staff did evaluate the requests, one for adding an extra camera here at the lectern. And in order to accomplish that, we would need additional equipment. And we would have to, including a mixer, as well as assign someone to manage the camera locations. And then as far as having the agenda scrolling up on the screen, that would require additional staffing as well as interruptions during the meeting of flipping back and forth between people coming up and presenting versus then scrolling up and down the screens. So at this time, staff says that we are not able to accommodate those requests. However, there is in the capital improvement program to address technology issues in FY 25. And as far as if there are any other alternatives in the meantime, we will just continue to look and let you know if we are able to do something.
I mean, I just want to say this. I think Sandy's right on. I appreciate the clarity, Sandy, on the position. I'm just telling you this, and this is for whoever wants to listen. I'm in court every day. They have something called an owl. Ryan, you ever seen an owl? Okay, an owl's easy. It's a device. It's a camera. It's a speaker. It turns and spins around a room when someone's talking. I'm in a podium. It faces me. Prosecutors at the podium. It goes to the prosecutor. Judge says it goes to the judge. There's a whiteboard. It goes to the whiteboard. It's all preloaded. Thing costs $500. I'll buy it. It seems like the easiest thing to do to like zoom in and do it. I'm just saying, it seems like the easiest thing.
Mr.
So-
Mayor, I actually got one for about $79 on my house right now that I can spin and you can't hear it. And it moves great
So
video.
Listen, there's got to be an easier way. I think my colleagues, I think
Oh, yeah.
Sandy's been right on for years saying we got to do something better. And I think it's an easy, like plug and play type of thing, but that's just my opinion. I would urge staff to look at that again.
We will relook.
Anyone else? I mean, I don't want to be, so I didn't even think we were going down that rabbit hole. So
Sorry, that's all I have.
you okay going first for commission comments, Jeffrey? Oh, Madam City Attorney, sorry.
Thank you. It's been a long evening, so I'll be brief. I did update you all, but just for the benefit of the public, or in case you missed it, that the United States District Court of Appeals and the District of Columbia Circuit Court recently entered an order denying the plaintiff's motion for rehearing en banc in the case of West Flagler Associates versus Deborah Holland, Secretary of the U.S. Department of the Interior in the Seminole Tribe of Florida. Essentially, that upheld the Seminole Compact with the state of Florida, from which we have the benefit of receiving some funds for based on our casino here in Coconut Creek. We are still watching the case because it could be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and I will keep you updated as it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. You good to go first or you want to wait to the end? Okay, Commissioner Wasserman.
Two quick things. Lashana Tova, Happy New Year to all the Jewish people in Coconut Creek as we start a new year here. There was an idea that maybe the city manager, our ambassador program has so many different things, so many different topics. I was thinking budget might be one of the good ones to talk about.
I didn't hear what program, what.
Budget. Maybe we could talk
Oh,
about the
ambassador
budget.
Program, okay.
I think there might be sentiment out there that city taxes pay for everything. That's not true. We have different revenue streams that cover different parts of our budget. And I think it's important that we educate, our city, we're supposed to educate our citizens about the budget, about different things in our city. So I think it's important that we maybe have an ambassador program on the budget to give people knowledge of what the budget's all about and what the revenue stream is and how city taxes don't pay for everything and how different, I don't know. Maybe we can have that, please.
It's a great idea, and being a finance background for the city, love to do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One more also, there's a thing in Weston called Weston University. It's for juniors and seniors in high school. And basically it's kind of a program very similar to Citizens Academy, but it's for juniors and seniors in high school that come to the city and they learn about the different parts of local government. And it kind of gets them involved. It gets them knowledge about what goes on in the city. And I was thinking about maybe, if consensus here, maybe trying to encourage more student participation in our city and, in learning about what local government does. It could encourage voter participation as they grow older. In Coconut Creek University, we can maybe do something to help our juniors and seniors learn a little bit more about, what we do and kind of gauge some interest from them, maybe.
So the Citizens Academy, we have years ago, we did do it for high schoolers. And we'd be happy to relook at that again.
That concludes my comments. Thank you.
All right. I'm getting on a plane soon, so we're going to make this short. So 9/11 event, as you guys know, for the last now 6 years, we've done the Stairmaster Challenge. I had the honor of being able to do it in 2 locations this year, which added to another adventure in my life that I didn't really want to I guess head up, but it is what it is. But it was a great event. The one event we did here in Coconut Creek had about 100 to 120 people come in and join in. In the system I was working in, we had about 105. And on top of that, the whole entire organization, about 200 of the clubs did it nationwide. So not only were we able to kind of create something here in Coconut Creek to honor our first responders, but they loved the idea so much that they ran it in all 200 clubs in this one gym system. So I thought that was pretty amazing to be able to kind of turn something that we did locally into something that ended up being a kind of a national thing. So that was kind of fun. And I'm going to tell you, at my age, those 111 stairs flights were brutal. I'm going to probably need the whole next year to rest my knees. On top of that is something I don't really talk about a lot, but I belong to a society called the 917 Society. 917 Society is a group of volunteers that got involved with a federal mandate of 9/17, September 17th, of giving out constitutional handouts to the 8th graders in schools. Now, the great thing about this year was Dr. Licata actually sent a letter to the schools and said, please accept the pocket constitutions to all the schools. So it was really cool to see us being able to put out, and I'm going to give some numbers here because it's pretty amazing. We distributed 25,000 constitutions this month to Broward County alone. That's 178 public and private schools in Broward County. So we hit everybody that had an 8th grade class. We hit it. And so it's pretty good. If everybody knows me, I love my First Amendment, certainly love my Second Amendment. But it's sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that, but yeah, I did. Absolutely, I did. But it was pretty good. We were able to give it out. This is what they look like. So we're delivering them all over the county with the support from the school board, which, you know, that's pretty huge to get those guys to back anything, especially right now in this day and age. So that was pretty cool. On top of that, I was able to go in on Tuesday to the school board, and there was an item on there called Veterans Month for the schools. So I was able to get up there and speak about the importance of why we should have Veterans Month in a school, and kind of be able to give my 3 minutes on the other side of the dais over there and speak to them. It passed unanimously. So November we'll see Veterans Month in our schools here in Broward County. So I thought that was another great win for I think our school. So yeah, it was a very eventful week for me.
Yes.
Sorry, my mic was off. John, I would appreciate it. Commissioner Brody, maybe you can leave us all a
Yeah.
copy on our desks.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you,
that
sir.
would be great. Yeah, that's right. Great. Okay. I'll start off with, we went to an amazing event in Township. They actually dedicated a piece of the World Trade Center and had it displayed in their library. And they set it up on the wall. And I have a picture of it as well, but it's beautiful the way they did it. And they had a beautiful ceremony where they honored 9/11 victims and families and our first responders. Very moving and very well done. So thank you, Township, for that. Also, I want to give out a shout to our staff and the Multicultural Club for the Mexico being honored at the Art Fest. A great job. They really did. They had an amazing turnout. There were more than I expected, the residents that showed up, but it was a great event. Kudos. Also, Happy New Year to everyone. On the September 21st Turnpike public hearing, Winmore will be providing buses. So any resident that wants to register, please do so. The information went out today, so please sign up for that. That's all I've got. Thank you.
About the township ceremony that they had for the piece from the World Trade Center, it caused me, because they really read the requirements that are of if you are so fortunate to get a piece of the tower. And I wasn't aware of the video that Commissioner Rayleigh had made until after the fact, but it caused me to pause to think, are we following all of the protocol of receiving that? Because it just, everything that they read, it doesn't look like it will qualify as a moving item. And I was hoping that someone, I know Karen and I are due to take another city tour, and I actually want you to go in and see what they have done, because it's really more than a wall. It is an absolute professional tribute to how it should be displayed and viewed. And they even have a reflecting bench there. And if there's something that we can do in the city besides, I don't want to say that because I know there was a lot of thought and preparation that went into that moving wall. I didn't know it, but I don't know that we're following all the protocol. And I just would like to see it done according to that. But anyway, thank you. The Main Street public meetings, and I know they've got another one scheduled for next Tuesday, but I went as a resident from Coquina, and I have to tell you, they had a good turnout, and but there were a few surprises. John's Park was one of them. I didn't, with the complete with the windmill. I don't know if that's what's actually going to shake out, that what they're going to bring for us. I'll wait and see, but it really looked good. Everybody that I heard or talked to, they really loved the idea. And of course, they gave out a lot of food, so that people will always stay and linger if you give them a lot of food, but they did a good job. So just a couple of things about the school. Dave Thomas, this is the first year that they have only high school students on campus. The middle school no longer goes there. They go to the Charles Drew campus. They're piloting that with the new principal. Monarch, the principal wasn't there when I went to the SAC meeting, but they are. Something that alarmed me is short-staffed at the gate security, and some problems with the photographer that's taking the IDs. So some maybe don't all have it. I don't know. Coconut Creek High School had a huge turnout of parents and even grandparents that came to the SAC meeting, and their enrollment is up. They projected 1870 and they actually have 1952. The Creek Tech Academy has 250 students. They didn't want them to accept more than 50 because they, want to keep it compact. But I mean, it was some good. And they really gave her what she needed. 3 assistant principals, and they are ready to go to be assigned to a school. So she got one from Stoneman Douglas. Yeah. And, but I mean, they really gave her, they surrounded her with some good people. So she will succeed, I hope. And, MPO was interesting. They had a presentation from the airport. Mr. Gale came and presented. He talked about the people mover, and were you talking about, floating cars, flying cars. Okay. Well, when he talked about the people mover, and that we were the only airport of that size that didn't have one. and the way that they're incorporating it, in addition to 77 additional gates and some concourse and a hotel and connection with that light rail going into the airport and then continuing on to the port. He talked about in the future that there will be something like that and not too distant a future. So I don't know if it's a Jetson pack or whatever, but he kind of lightened up on his presentation when he said that. And they have 35 million travelers that come through there every day. And so it was quite interesting. We were highlighted as one of 11 projects that received funding and are going forward for the surtax, the penny surtax. We were number 1 and number 4. So, and that also, when they showed that graph, caused some of the smaller cities to pipe up and say, can't we set some of that surtax money aside for smaller cities that maybe don't have the staff that gets them to present those shovel-ready programs? Like, they didn't call us out, but I knew who they were looking at, Coconut Creek. So I don't know, they're going to entertain some thought to that, or even maybe host some training so those other cities can come up to our speed, because we do have some remarkable staff that brings back a lot of money to this city. South Creek was, I think, the first one, project number 1 that's going to get the rehabilitation there. And I still hope that Sunshine Drive can get some enhancements on that. I mean, I know that's your district, but when we had the picnic, they really, really wanted some of that. So anyway, that's all. I think we've had a long enough meeting.
But I have so much to say. The filibuster. Sandy, I think you hit the nail on the head. When I was sitting in township, first of all, I think Jackie, you guys couldn't, we were all there. It was an event we all made it to. Really moving. I went to Miramar earlier in the day too, also really moving. And then I always think, like, should we be doing an event? But then sometimes you don't. I think there's enough in the city going on. The school last night, the North Broward Preparatory School, did an amazing 9/11 presentation as well. So I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the city. I would like to highlight the township, if that township down the road wanted. It's very clear they're doing something every year. I don't know if it's maybe a partnership or just something that we could, do something a little more formal. They had a large contingent of retired firefighters and people there, but I would love to see. I mean, Dan Eberly was there representing the city, and I'd love to see some more. Maybe they want our honor guard there or something along those lines. Just this food for thought of what they're trying to do at township is I love. I will tell you this, Sandy hit the nail on the head, because when we heard the congressional, I guess, maybe it wasn't congressional, but there was a mandate when you accept a piece of the World Trade Center about, it's like a reading that this was given to Ray Leibowitz. First of all, we've all known Ray for a really long time coming to things, but he, what he did for that is spectacular. But if you read the letter of that mandate, like, we are definitely not in compliance with that. I don't have a problem saying that. Like, we're not. It's not the point of it. So we got it. That needs to change one way or the other. I don't know how you change it, but just read the mandate, and I think just get in compliance with it. It's that simple. So that's all I have to say on that. Ryan, you with me? Can we play that video? Yeah, let's play video. Okay, so maybe inappropriate, maybe not, but Ryan's going to play a video that that went viral on social media. Let's take a look. How much time do you need, Ryan? Thank you. Sandy's left. She's left the building. I'll wait for you. Don't worry.
I'll just add on the 9/11 ceremony, or our medal piece. Our long-term vision for that is to move it into a someplace special in the Main Street area.
No, I'm not saying it like that, but it's like,
No,
you
I
did.
get it.
When you listen to that, you're like, I mean, that event was amazing.
Thanks.
And it was just, you heard that. I never heard that before. Even I've been to a lot of, I was in Miramar and I didn't hear that. I've been in Coral Springs. I've never heard that.
But I know but we're looking at 7 years down the
Yeah.
line. So if
That-
we could do something,
Right. Well, that was what we decided was that we were going to make it a moving piece around so that we can, enable more residents, one, to see it and have access to it and be able to, benefit from touching it, all of those things. So, it's just, things are a matter of.
Don't hit play yet,
Okay.
Ryan. I'll give you the cue.
That's it.
The Arts Fest, great. The only thing I'll say, and this is kind of like a food for thought. This year and last year, people couldn't park. So just maybe in the future, we may want to work something out with Strata or one of the other neighboring communities. So at least there's a crossing guard or whatever it is. I just noticed that was a really big issue with people trying to park because the community center doesn't really have a lot of parking. Just something to consider in a future event, because I think Arts Fest has gotten more and more and more bigger, and especially the two cultures we highlighted last year and this year. Love the cultural component. I think former Mayor Belvedere has done a great job what she's built there, and I urge people to continue to get involved. So I mean, you want to wait? We don't need to wait for Sandy. I want to wait for Sandy because I think Sandy's yeah.
a shout out. I know Representative Hunchowski had a town hall meeting this week, and the topic was mental wellness, health.
Was there a selfie?
I don't think that was there. Was
Okay.
there?
I don't know. I was-
Anyway, I
I
don't
didn't-
think so. Not that night. But anyway, there was a panel of 6 experts. Dr. Poland was the main speaker as well. And I have to say, it was very, very beneficial. And I was disappointed that we didn't have more residents attending. But I have to say, I think it's a very needed topic. And it was very well done.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to give a little precursor to this, and this isn't for like shock value or anything. Somebody that's very heavily involved in the criminal justice community, and I think our chief knows this for years of discussions that I've gone back with him. I'd like to think we all kind of previously had roles doing things, right? I've been kind of on the forefront of a lot of criminal justice issues and how the city deals with them. A decision Butch had made years ago was to not support certain aspects of the Promise program and civil citation. The reason I'm bringing that up is because this video, I'm not trying to highlight something, because I actually think this highlights the city in a very good light. What it highlights is the deficiency in the connection with what we can be doing more in our schools to prevent this. Play the video, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Oh. It is. This is in Lions Creek. So thank you. Facebook is a different platform that I know all of us are on, just a little bit on Facebook. TikTok, Instagram, the things have a different ability of trending and going viral on this. This video has gone viral in this city. So I'm just highlighting that to you. And some of you may not have wanted me to show that. I want to show it for a reason. To highlight 2 things. A, the responses, so the comments that you see, very pro Coconut Creek Police, pro response time, pro how professional the officers are there. So that's a good thing. So I'm not saying it involving the police department. I'm highlighting 2 facts. This city's continued commitment, because if this city commission gave direction to our city manager and our police chief to civil citation people, if that happened in another school, that kid gets a warning. A warning. So let's just address that first. You may be for that, you may not. That's an issue to me. Issue number 2 to me is this is going to reach you now because it's trending to Facebook now. It's all over TikTok. The issue I have is granted that certain schools have an affinity to not getting us, and I turn to my colleagues because some of you are in the schools much more. And I don't have that answer today, we need to figure out how the city and our police department could be a better partner to prevent anything like this from happening. I don't have that answer right now. I'm highlighting it to you because I believe we all either need to independently brainstorm or talk to people. This to me is unacceptable. And this, scarily enough, I've talked to educators. I mean, Commissioner Wasserman, this doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't shock you, but this is more frequent than I think countywide than I would think. Is that a fair statement? Okay, so I'm not trying to say that, but I'm just saying, and that's something that I think up here we're a little removed from some of that stuff. But if our police department, we have agreements to have SROs in schools, right? So now Coconut Creek has authority to be there. What can we do better through police programming, through city involvement to get to our kids before it gets to this? And I don't have that answer, but I really want to find something we can do, especially at Lions Creek Middle. I'll leave it at that. So that's all I have. Unless somebody,
To add to that, I became friends with somebody who moved down here from Ohio at the beginning of the school year and was trying to come from, I'm like, it's a different world from Ohio to here. So we kind of became friends a little bit. She's a single mom. Her son's in 8th grade. I say, hey, look, you got to be careful. It's, it's a different environment down here than it is, where you came from. Kind of chatted with her. And next thing you know, I get a message. I had to been Monday or Tuesday night. She pulled her kid out of Lions Creek Middle because they were attacking him. And now he's at Broward Virtual Schools. So this is not a one-off. I think there's a systemic issue that we've got in that school. It was that way when my kids went there. I think we need to find a real answer for this because I don't think it's going to get any better with, in the near future. We got to figure it out.
Listen, we have been forced to take on problems with that school that the school board has, whether the school board or listen, I'm not pointing fingers. We've had to deal with traffic. They don't care. Fact, this is now the 4th issue in the past 3 years that has gone viral at that school. Viral. I mean, Jeff, I trust your judgment as an
Yeah, no, I'd like to see, I guess we could do a request on their DMS and see
Can you help me with the
their
acronyms?
assessor. Basically, their assessor. Right, they're required to show you the assessor events. Basically, there's infractions that students do that qualify for assessor, which is like the highest level. It could be drugs, it's fighting, it's battery, it's vaping, sure. And they are required to show, those. And sometimes they classify them different, right? That might not be classified as a fight. That might be classified as a physical attack. You know what I mean? So when you look at that data and you'll think what fight and physical attack might be the same thing.
Isn't that administrator
right?
Though? Isn't that check mark of what it is determined by what the principal chooses to make it?
Yes.
So there you go. So I'm not saying it, but that's principal. So I'm not trying to get into their
right, but it's also, that looked like a physical attack. It didn't look like a fight to me. I would have, as an assistant principal, I would have said that's a physical attack because the other person wasn't fighting back. So you get what I'm saying?
I do, but I guess the point of why I'm saying this, because I think you can go into a larger discussion, is I don't know if it's better dare. I don't know if it's an anti-bullying campaign. I don't know that answer. But whatever we have an ability of brainstorming and doing, whether it's through the police department, the fire department, or the city, we need to do with that school because the outreach.
It's good, but you need.
Yeah, of course, Jackie.
Oh, sorry.
I think we're putting too much on us. I think we need to go to the administrators of that school. We need to put pressure on them. At least the parents should be putting the pressure on the principal and the vice principal.
These parents.
This shouldn't be on us. Morally, yes, we can. If there's a program, we have the DARE program. We have our SROs in there. I think that the pressure should be on the principal and the vice principal and the teachers. That's where it should be.
Well, I think our SROs, those that I'm familiar with, are extremely proactive to the extent that they can be.
That's the key.
And, they have limitations as well, but that prevent them from probably doing more. So as a result, in this incident, they obviously are extremely and immediately reactive. But I consider the best source of any information in that regard in our SROs. They're there. They know what could be better done. And to me, those are our information feeders, not us, but they.
So I guess Karen, can I ask you to,
Was that-
through the police department and through, maybe Dan Everly or whoever it is, to figure out if those SROs can be suggestive and creative to say, hey, maybe this is some programming that could help the climate. I don't know if it is, but, and I don't think the school board does anything.
Well, I would.
Shame on them, but that
yeah.
leaves us with our kids in the school.
This would be out of our lane a little bit. If the city commission came to us at Cypress Bay, we would have a conversation, a dialogue. But at the end of the day, it's the administration that's going to make the decisions and do what they think is best, because we're in the schools, 9 hours a day, rather than a commission who's seeing a video. And I'm not disparaging it, right? But we can talk, we can build relationships, which I think is nice with the administration, and hopefully they'd be open to that.
I have a relationship with the administration.
Okay.
The point I'm trying to make, Jeff, and you tell me if it's out of my lane, is if the city commission and through our police department comes and says, hey, principal, we have some programming we'd love to do that we think can help your student body. Sure, come on in and do it. You would have an issue with that as a vice principal of the school? I'm just asking.
No, I wouldn't. It's a matter of what the program would be. And it's a matter of if it's already in line with some of the stuff we're doing, or maybe we're already doing stuff like that. You know what I mean? Maybe we're already trying to educate about how this is inappropriate behavior and things like that. We have a relationship with BSO. BSO comes to those vaping presentations. We do that.
I think this is a little different than drugs and vaping, that's all.
Yeah.
So I say it not to come to a conclusion, but to start a discussion, because this has become a lot more consistent. And this has been shared with me with too many parents to not at least have a conversation on the dais about it. And there was an open house there tonight where this was one of the biggest items amongst hundreds of people checking an open house out. I think listen, I'm not gonna speak to that, because there has been issues that I've seen on a criminal justice side, and I have my own perception on. But listen, some of you guys are much more plugged into the schools than me, so I don't pretend to be. But I have a perception, and I hear things in the community, just like traffic. They can complain about traffic so much. Oh, we're calling the school about traffic. We're calling the school about traffic. There comes a point that your local government says, let's try to do something a little more. And I think we're there.
I know zero tolerance. I think once they're disciplined and they see that there is no tolerance for this type of behavior, then they'll think twice about it. But if there are no consequences of value, it means nothing. I mean, my grandson got detention for wearing, even though it said Severian High School on it, it had a hood. Got detention because there was zero tolerance about wearing a sweatshirt with the hood, even though it had the high school's name on it. So, I mean, it sounds silly, but I'm talking about zero tolerance and consequences.
Well,
The kids have to know that there are consequences to their behavior. Suspension is a holiday. Suspension is time off from school.
so I guess I'm bringing this up, and I'm saying, I guess I'll be very clear with this. I would love to hear Vice Mayor Welch's, after she digests this. I mean, I have no problem saying it. I think, Sandy, you're plugged into the schools. In my perception, so you have some of the longest standing relationships, good, bad, or indifferent. I would love to see if there's a way to supplement programming that helps, that we can do without stepping on the Broward County School Board's toes. And I don't know that answer.
Gave you, I feel like our best source of information or suggestions or ideas or
Okay.
possibilities
So that's what we're asking for.
would be our SROs now.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
Okay, I got nothing else. I need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.